All right, we're going to call this meeting of the Berlin Boylston Regional School Committee to order. Thank you. Could you all please stand for pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thanks, everybody. 15 minutes of public comment, if anybody's here. Yep. Go on up in the front, name, address, and what do you want to talk about?
Jason Paquette in Berlin. Daughter is an 8th grader here, son is a 5th grader at BNS. Regarding upcoming budget stuff, how the fiscal 24 and 25 budgets were handled by both the district and the town damage trust. At this point, it doesn't matter how, why, or who was right or wrong. What matters now is that the district is facing a voter base that is skeptical, and in some cases outright hostile and spiteful. Hopefully that's a minority, but they're also very vocal and perhaps influential. Last year's presentation to the voters felt like a false choice between two polar options: either accept massive tax increases or accept the loss of all electives and extracurriculars. The district failed to rationally explain why there was no middle ground available. Why was a modest increase with some modest reductions not possible? In asking for a large increase, there was virtually no transparency. There was a few top-level numbers on a slide deck, but no supporting information or commentary behind those numbers until after town meeting. Last year, we requested a budget book similar to what Assabet and other districts make available, so it is promising to hear that a budget book will be an output of this year's budget process. I look forward to its availability. With that in mind, I offer a suggestion for your consideration. Please help the voters understand why the only options are large tax increases or draconian cuts. If the district is running so lean that there are no impactful savings, then please demonstrate that with supporting evidence and commentary. Tell us your story with supporting data. Last year, there was live discussion, but no documentation to illustrate the point about a large portion of the budget that cannot be cut due to state requirements or capacity considerations, such as 50 kids in a grade level must have 2 teachers and so on. To help illustrate how lean the district is already running, if that is the case, it would be helpful to see the budget articulated in terms of minimum requirements versus discretionary, as in, if you have to make cuts, this is where they have to come from. As this story was not being well articulated or supported by the district last year, I personally spent hours poring over net school spending data, comparing it to comparable nearby rural districts, trying to learn if the district is running lean or has room to tighten its belt. That story should be told by the district to all voters who need to hear it. Tell us your story with supporting data. It would be helpful to see not only the top drivers of increasing costs, but also where the district has created savings that help offset required increases. For example, there has been some discussion about seeking savings from agency costs by hiring those positions directly. What other areas has the district looked for savings or reductions? Please demonstrate what specific efforts have been made to rein in costs. Tell us your story with supporting data. The general sentiment from parents with students in the district tends to be that we choose to live here because it is a great district and we don't want to see it gutted. That sentiment can only absorb so much in terms of tax increases. The rates of increases we've seen are going to become untenable if they haven't already. It doesn't seem reasonable that the only choices are major tax hikes or draconian wholesale cuts.
I don't see anybody. Anybody else? No, he's not. All right. All right. One last time for public comment. Anybody out there? All nope. All right. Could I please have any communications that you might have received? Anyone? No? All right, then. Could I please have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
I heard Lisa
Second.
and Megan. Second. All right. Any discussion, questions on that? That has a warrant and 2 meeting minutes. The warrant will have some spending information out there as well. If people are interested in looking at that, it should be available online. Any questions? No? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, against? Okay. For my report tonight, I'm just going to briefly read a little summary of our meeting last night. So for those who don't know, we had a meeting last night to discuss the superintendent search and what we're going to do, our next steps for that. So last night we met with our MASC rep to discuss these next steps, and she did suggest several things. Tracy Novak was here. She said based on our district's current status, issues that we've been dealing with,
The situation last year with the budget mess, the fact that our current interim superintendent was thrust into a situation with virtually no team in place over the summer, having to start everything over from scratch. She suggested that it might be worthwhile to do an interim search for another year to give us time to repair and improve the situation with our district. Mainly, we're talking about things in the central office. In order to make this a more appealing position for someone looking to be hired as our next superintendent. So if we were to take that path, we would still do a public search for an interim person. Al, you'd be more than welcome to apply for that position if you were interested. I don't know if you would be or not. And I think what we agreed last night, although we didn't vote it, was that that might be our preferred approach. And so we do have a last minute addition to tonight's agenda to add that as a vote. So we'll discuss it later on that. Just a few more notes about last night. Tracy did go over the timeline of a full search and what that would mean for finding a permanent replacement for our superintendent if we were to start this winter. She suggested, and we kind of agreed with her, that it would make it a bit rushed process if we were to start this winter based on the timing of where things are. And it might be a more natural fit to start a full superintendent search at the beginning of the school year, have that sort of full year, start new school, start new search, and then give plenty of time for a transition period. She also discussed what the search might look like if we started at the beginning of the year, giving us some more breathing room to actually prepare documentation to get ready for that search, to put together a proper search package, and it would be more natural fit. So there's probably a lot of questions right now about why we didn't just start a full search right away in August when we heard that. So in August, we didn't start immediately once we heard that Carol Costello decided to end her contract after the first year. If you remember at the time, central office was having a hell of a time actually paying the electric bill, never mind anything else. So it was kind of all we could do to get someone in place with 2 weeks to go before the start of school to just lead us through here. We found Al, and he was named our interim. And even though we looked for other candidates, only 2 applied. One was Al, the other was the consultant who had been part of that group over the summer. So we have Al here now, and later on tonight, we're going to put a vote on whether we want to officially start an interim search or if we want to start the full-time permanent search this winter. So that's my chair report that I have tonight to update everyone. We'll get to that later on in business items. Next up, we have our superintendent of schools report. So Al, if you wouldn't mind taking away.
Great, thanks, Mike. So if I can ask, we're gonna go a little bit out of order. I know Matt Carroll's here. He is our athletic director. He's a little bit later on in administrative updates, but I know he's got a couple games going on, and he asked if he could go a little earlier, so I'm gonna turn it over to Matt.
Yeah, I was asked to talk about what I do for the athletic director. Should I sit?
Hey, you go up front, yeah.
Got some of these out. I don't know if it's on.
So I think we have your PowerPoint presentation up there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Right. To my I got more copies than anyone wants to look at.
So we're gonna try, ladies and gentlemen, in the future to make sure everything is put up on this overhead screen so people can see things. There'll always be hard copies, but we're gonna try to move away from that if we can. We can have it seen for everybody out there as well.
Just was gonna talk about what I do as an athletic director. First, again, it was a quick overview. This is quite a few sheets, I guess, but it's kind of a quick overview. And sorry, I was late too. I was bringing the other team in, and they had to get a lot. Just talking about budgeting first. I don't have a secretary or an assistant, so I order all the supplies for all the teams, or set up the budget for all the supplies for all the teams, and how we put that together. Transportation, I'm the one that sets up all the buses when we do it now. We have a game, we set up a bus. Another piece of that is we have had issues with the buses. I'm sure you all know that overall with the buses, but a teacher here at school, Chris Cavino, decided to be basically our personal bus driver from NRT, signs up to NRT, and then we park the bus here. So although we still have some issues sometimes, and we got multiple games going on, for the most part, I mean, it has been, there are schools out there that have major issues. We have a bus here parked almost every time we have a chance to do it. And we work around it. If they don't have a bus, sometimes maybe a little bit later, we have someone to bring them in, but I mean, it's been, Chris has been Officials, I put the officials together, I gotta get them paid, gotta write down every game, I go over it fast, but there's probably have been somewhere else out there too. Field rentals. Our fields have not been great towards the end of the season often, and also when rain comes, they get flooded. So, you know, we've had to go to a lot of area places. But really, going other places, we haven't come out of the budget too much. I don't know what that'll look like in the future, but I've called in a lot of favorites, I guess, would be the word for that. Same with EMTs, we don't have a trainer, that's another thing that we don't have here. So when we have MIAA games, we have had quite a few over the past 5 years when we go into the state tournaments. You is required to have an EMT or official there. So Boylston Fire Department has supplied us EMTs for us, and they have been great. Another big favor that we get. And then also putting together the workforce for all of our games. Ticket sales to basketball is really the only one where we need a workforce for selling tickets and putting together people outside. But when we have an MIAA game here, whether it's soccer or basketball again or lacrosse, we need to have ticket sales for those games. And it's tough to set up a whole outside section and have ball people. We have ball people at soccer games all the time. But the entire workforce got to put that together. That would really be the budget section of stuff. I thought I wanted to throw in a few things on there, but yeah, no, I talked about this. Scheduling. Again, schedule all the games. Now, we are in the Midwalk, and being in the Midwalk is a big, Midland, Washington is what it's actually called. There's 26 schools. We are one of the smallest schools, don't get me wrong, but being a part of that, one advantage is you are in leagues. All schools are in leagues, don't get me wrong, but, you know, and being in part of Midland, Wachusett, these leagues are a little bigger, and half of your games get scheduled, I would say, about half. And then I have to go out and get all different makeups for what we're gonna, not makeups, opponents for where we're gonna go, and, I mean, that just started last week, so for fall. Fall schedule comes out last week in the Midland, Wachusett, in most schools, February 1st. And then we are already, this past week, I was setting up next fall, which we're pretty much all, I've set it all up. Pretty much have our game set when we're gonna go, but I mean, that's how far in advance we are setting these things up. Come March, we'll be setting up next winter already. So that's been a big thing that's been going on this week, trying to get fall's schedule set up. Transportation, we already talked about the buses, so what I need to put that together. Coordinate communication with the co-op teams and communities. You know, we play West Boylston football, which has been big the past few years, but we play Hudson hockey, which is having a phenomenal year this year. We play Hudson boys lacrosse. We have lacrosse here for girls. West Boylston comes to play with us. We have cross country, golf, and track. West Boylston comes to play with us. Neshoba ski. Neshoba, we have some kids in the So really good skiers in there. I mean, it's, these co-ops put in the organizing and trying to get everybody together. It's another form of the scheduling. Schedule officials, talked about those. Schedule the workforce, talked about that in the last one. It can be tough though, trying to get people to do ticket sales or someone that wants to work at the side of a soccer game, going to get the balls as they go off to the side, but the kids really help us out on that. Administer all these games, supposed to be out there right now for the middle school game. We have 2 middle school games today, and then the JV comes in and varsity for Gardner girls games today. So that's, you know, I'm administering all those games. And this is scheduling, but a big part is the changing of the schedule. And I mean, kind of the example this week. I've been watching weather since last Wednesday. There's this week, Thursday, we could very well have a snow day or there's bad weather coming in. I've been watching that since Wednesday and updating parents since Wednesday that this could happen. It's also supposed to be a senior game come Thursday. Anyways, I can tell the other schools, all our workers, everything over the weekend. Anyways, come Monday, I finally pulled the trigger, and I wanted to do it early to make sure we have officials, like, officials can be short when we switch stuff up. We're playing the day before, tomorrow, instead of going to Friday. And as I did that, a directive came out that a lot of people are now trying to move Thursdays. So I was a little ahead of it. And they were told they cannot move them to Friday because there aren't enough officials. So the fact that we moved it, we're now playing Wednesday at least, we don't have to worry about putting it into vacation. And we have officials where some people might not get. And the reason not going into vacation is because our basketball teams are doing great again this year, and they are in the Central Mass Tournament. So another thing today is trying to get everything together. We are hosting, they're both the 1 and the 2 seed in the Central Mass Tournaments, and we are playing on Monday now on President's Day, over vacation, yes, and it's another day off, yes, but that's cool. We have to get that done to be able to play the game. So that's an example of trying to schedule all this stuff. Minister, I said that, change the schedule. And then, coordinating, facility of availability, that's more of other people wanting to use our facilities. We've got travel with basketball in here on Sundays, gotta make sure. We have practices still going on, people want to use our baseball fields, you have to make sure. And there's a wide array when it comes to schedule. Let's go to registration. This is taking longer than I would have liked. Registration. Family ID Arbiter, we got this last year. So this will be our first time for the spring. So this year we started with it. It has really been much easier. We used to do it with Google Sheets. Now we can send this out. Everybody registers. Once you register, all your information is there. It's just an aspect of a piece of technology that has made my life much easier as this year has gone on. Also with this family ID arbiter, I'd probably say this later, but I'll tell you now, communication. You click on a button and I can email the entire season of everybody. I can break it down to just players. I can break it down to just one parent or a couple parents. I can break it down to the team. So today we just found out about the games that are going to be Monday. So I just literally, before I walked in here, sent out another email to all the parents of both boys and girls varsity teams that they are now playing, you probably have to see that, on Monday over vacation, the 2 games that we had. So it's really good for communication, which for our coaches to use, for anyone to use, but especially for me to get it out to the parents. Physicals, that's involved in registration, but now to make physicals easier, it was always trying to chase kids around, trying to find out if they're eligible to play. They cannot play if their physicals expire. Day it expires, you're done. So, I have the opportunity that, hey, it's going to expire soon. Me and the nurse, we can get out emails to those kids to let them know you got to make sure you have the physical up to date at that time. Payments, not very good on that family ID arbiter. I can write down the people paid, but there isn't really a spot to show how much they paid, when they paid. We have some that might be on, you get a waiver, and then just doesn't add it up. And that's me trying to get them all together. Family caps just takes up a lot of time. But at least it has a spot in there that I can see that people have paid. I think that would good end of the race. There was something I wanted to say on that. Another piece of this is with team organization. Registration, data analysis, to understand which teams have enough players, trying to put everybody where they need to be. Sometimes we don't have enough to fill a team. Sometimes we fill our numbers to make sure we have everybody for all teams. So this year, actually, I have more time. Just had time and to do a pre-sign up. So then I go around to all the kids first and find out who's playing what, so that we, maybe we only have 20 kids signed up, so we might not have enough for a different team that we had, or we gotta put the kids in different spots, or how many teams we're gonna have. And that's just pre-registration. That's just me putting up like a Google form, or going to everybody, and then for 2 weeks, going on lunch, making sure I get everybody signed up. Then finally they register. And then we can at least have a good idea, that's especially for scheduling. Hiring all the coaches, and sometimes generated coaches, that's on me, bring them in, hopefully interview them with our head coaches or the admin or whoever would like to be involved in that hiring process to get the coaches. And then, coordinating an outside candidate. When we have someone in the school, it's easier. It's nice to have a person in the school, but you sometimes gotta go outside the school to get people too. Post that outside and then bring them in, have interviews, or core checks and fingerprint. We do that for everybody, but as a teacher, they have that already. So now it's a bigger step to get them in. Award ceremony, that's something I would like to change a little bit because it's great. We have this big, huge award ceremony at the end of the year, but I'd like to make that a little different. That's something I would like to change up to next year. So it's not try to put 3 hours into one night when we maybe could have 3 different ones or individual, but it's a lot of planning. We won't use the auditorium, but it might make it easier if we change that up a little bit. New this year again, ARC Ed, that's basically what it is, and teachers use it also, but it's a platform that holds all the information for all the coaches that we need, from sign-ups that they have to be able to, that they can coach, down to certifications, like having CPR, having having concussion training. So this new ARC Ed makes, again, life a little easier, because all this is somewhere and says they're ready to go, or it's 90% full, gotta go get this other stuff before they're on. And then also bringing back these preseason family meetings is now gonna be another thing coming into play. We've been talking about send out letters, send all the information out, but coming back now, we're gonna be able to put these preseason meetings together, which is, people don't necessarily like them, but we get all the families in here and then talk to them what we're looking for them for just a few minutes, but then they get to meet with the coaches and the coaches give their expectations. It's actually pretty big to see it and do it in person, so that is something that we're gonna bring back. Communication, again, talked about this already, I feel, in the last couple, but how Family ID makes it easier. But communication also daily. I am doing this, walking around the school, checking the cars, and then while I'm doing that, I can have these meetings with admin, with the coaches that are in the school, other schools and athletic directors. 90% of this job is done during the school day. Don't get me wrong, we have our games and practices after school, but administering, being there for the games, but all the planning, all the budgeting, all that, dealing with the other schools that we're going to be playing or even the players in our own school, that is done during the school day. And it's just, it's very time consuming. And being able to be in the school and go around and talk to all these people and make sure, when they have prep or whatever, or weather suddenly turns on a dime and it's pouring out, I can get that out and then I go right to Family ID hour and tell all the parents, hey, we don't have to do that. Or, and there's the weather, that's with the weather coming, that's the buses we're gonna talk about, but then it's a lot easier when I have Chris here also, in today's ranges. There's another piece though, student supports, which, we got this brand new academic, the quarterly support for struggling students now, and we just, put together a letter for that, for these kids when they're struggling, and how we can support them to, so they can continue to play sports, and then they get those grades up and do better. We just put together a whole system for that was, just passed a little while ago. Now we have ambassadors, which are just, kids in the school, which are ambassadors for the sport, for our school and for the whole state. And they have many workshops to go out to. We got to get them there. So I bring them to them. These ambassadors, they have workshops. Then these ambassadors also go to the Midland Wachusett workshops and conferences. There's MIAA leadership workshops and conferences. There's a ton of this stuff for our kids that we can use. And it's this last one at the end of this NTQ workshop, again, supporting mental health and, physical awareness of the kids too, to be ready for when practice comes up. That's another piece of just having more stuff for our athletes to be prepared for the season or after, when they're out of school. We also get to go to the sportsmanship conference, there's a women in sport conference, and another piece, NTQ up there with that is this Kyle Cares and Active Minds, which you guys will be seeing in a few weeks, trying to get that into the school. Another one, supporting student mental health. I think that was it on student sports.
Matt. If you don't mind, we're running a little short on time, but I know some people have some questions.
Go ahead.
Do you guys have some questions? I'm interested in a few of the things you said earlier, how that relates to, our budget. As we had public comment earlier, we've got budget issues, and this position, athletic director, is full-time this year. In the past, it's been part-time, with the other half being a teaching position. So I guess what we're looking for is, what value does the new full-time position bring in terms of budget and costs? What are we able to do now that we absolutely could not do before? What improvements are happening? What, basically the return on that extra half at full-time. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe Lisa, you can help me with this, but we did a full-time athletic director and a full-time math coach. It was split part-time math and part-time athletic director. So that's an extra cost. That's an increase. So can we get some numbers? I didn't see any numbers in the presentation, but do you have some numbers, like how we can see what kind of value that's bringing? I mean, maybe it's easier on the math side, but what are we able to do now? Like, I know there's issues with the fields. We talked about that earlier this year, right? With Matt.
So with the fields, so there's an example with the fields.
Yeah.
We have a game, I can't have that game here. I need to set up, I find out that day that we can have the game. We don't have the time to set that up when I'm in class doing something. I can talk right there, real time, to the other school. Hey, we need to set this up. Then I need to come to you. We need to play with you. We need to go to a different field.
As far as the fields go, so that's like a in the moment situation. Something happens that day, weather issues, whatever. Is there any movement on like a maintenance schedule, getting that improved so we actually can do something?
I'm going down to another meeting at 6:30 tonight.
Yeah.
Talk about the fields, but that's another one. For maintenance, when we have issues, I can help to get those fields ready now. I might have, we have something and we have to get that game in today. I sometimes will have time if I need to go to help, whatever might be the cost to get that game going. Same with the buses. We're talking about that, switching buses up for the next week, being in real time, being able to set those buses up to have them ready to go. Whereas when I'm, sitting in class and that bus has been canceled. Now I got to call for the bus company to, what are we going to do? Or to get in touch with parents. And, the last couple of years, often I can't get in touch with those parents quick enough. And I missed in middle school games to not let them know that the bus was canceled, and now there's kids that aren't going somewhere and they're stuck at school because they weren't able to get on the bus to go home because they missed the game because we didn't have time to get to that. It's just, it is the time that now I can talk with all these schools of what's going on, that I can talk with the bus company, that I can be involved and be with giving parent emails, that I can help outside on the field, on the court, 7. I know I'm missing many things on this, but that is really.
Well, I think one of the main things is for this year, I know that the school committee, as well, we are all very committed to, student academic success, and that, making sure that a contract, that, a letter's been created, the communication, and then the follow through and monitoring of that whole system that we talked about putting in place. That there's a lot of time involved that I know that Rich, Renee, and I don't. We're spread thin as it is. So he's able to take that and monitor, student athletes and academics He has reports written through for guidance. So that's a whole piece that never would have, it would have been untenable prior.
Lunch duties now too, lunch duty, and while I'm there, if something happens or the parents, I can still email someone while I'm sitting at lunch, but I can't necessarily do that while we're in class or doing something else along those lines.
And so with that, and I'll, excuse me, if I can. So that's been a huge, made a huge impact for Rich, Renee, and I, in terms of us being able to have parent meetings and student meetings during lunchtime. Because previously, we're the lunch duty people, because we also have, we'll cycle our staff through lunch duty. But if they have to cover a class, then we can't use it for lunch duty. So that would be our responsibility. So that's allowed us, I'd say, increase student and parent communication.
Again,
Megan?
So just two things. Number one, about the fields. So that's great that you're gonna work on that now. We've been working on that, or at least I have with Matt Ecom, probably like 7-8 months, right? But I know we met last summer with the Davidians. I know Joel Goulet was involved. But we've been meeting with the state now. We're looking into grants. So I just want to let you know, I'm going to start moving you in on that because I wasn't sure who from the school should be involved. We have Aaron, I think, is starting getting involved, but I think it would be helpful to have someone from Tohoto that can speak to that. And then the second thought I had was it would be great if, I know a lot of other communities offer like summer athletic programming, like camps to kids, even elementary kids. I don't know if that's something that we would think of as a district, because I would imagine, I'm looking at your schedule, I would imagine the summers probably aren't, I know you're planning for the fall, but it would be great to see if we could figure out a way to get some camps or something, even for the elementary kids, run them here, something like that, maybe. I don't know where that would fall under, but it seems like that would be a good place for that.
Yeah, that's good. Jess, you have something?
Yeah, I know you hadn't gotten to the coach evaluations yet, so I just needed to speak very briefly to that, because in my own high school career, I had a very negative experience with a coach, and I felt that there was an evaluation process or some mental health training for the coaches.
Set up a coach evaluation this year, meet with the coaches afterwards, go around and observe them through the season and see what's going on, and then look for, what we might have from parent input or player input, and putting together also, trying to put a survey together for that too, from experience, how that was, to get all that information and develop that, but the first part of it was the evals that were developed this year.
So it's going to be sent out to students and to parents.
That survey, yeah, the evals are from me, and from what I do, and then meet with the coaches at the end of the season. And that, whatever information I might have got as the year is going to be put in with that evaluation. But the survey is going to be more right now of your experience here. So that's separate from the evaluation, but it could be.
And sorry, very quickly, and so part of the coach training, I know there's the concussions and all that, and you mentioned there's a conference for athletes' student health, mental health. Is there something required within the training right now?
Well, there is certain requirements on coaches. I don't know that, not necessarily specific training, but there is, there are PDs that they could do. There are certain, they got to take the training, the concussion training is one. Another one is an implicit bias course. Another one is the CPR, then sign-ups going through and certifications for hazing and opioids. But there isn't necessarily another training section. There are stuff that they can take, fundamental coaching. There are different classes that they could take, not necessarily required. But having said that, if there's something when I'm looking at a coach then in the eval, if I heard, or there are certain trainings that we can give that coach everything that they should use.
So Matt is going right now through the same evaluation training that we as admin throughout the district are going through as well. So that would be part that he used, so there is a consistency in how we look at and evaluate people. That will sort of be used for coaches as well too. The other part is with the help of Sally, we are updating the training that some of our coaches need to attend. We found some holes this year that we didn't realize existed for some of our coaches, so we've added to that to make sure that's in place as well too. So that, just so you know, add to those two pieces.
Anybody other questions? I have one final question, but the family ID arbiter, what is it, arbiter?
Yes, well, it's confusing because it's like 3 or 4 different arbiter sites, so it's,
Okay.
I call it family ID, but it's run by arbiter.
So you mentioned communication. Is that how teams communicate with players too? Because,
Teams.
yeah, I don't know if this is the right place to bring it up. Some parents have told me that their kids are getting direct communications, direct text instead of using school devices. Is that the system that you should be
This is
using?
something like that, and also through Google Classroom and chat.
Okay,
So Matt, now those are the only two ways any communication happens with any of our coaches and any of our players now are those two formats that we control.
Right, that we control. And
The family arbiter is
goes
separate.
straight to that. It goes to the assignments of the parents.
okay, so it's more for registration, signups, and then regular school.
Yeah, but-
They can force out through Arbiter, they can force out, like, I just got one that says the middle school practice tomorrow's canceled. It came through Arbiter
Okay,
from
And
Matt.
it's me or a coach can then send that to the parents.
okay, so that's
That's
what's.
what family ID arbiter is, not to the players, it's to the families. So
Okay.
Whoever signed up for that player, it goes to that.
But coaches aren't texting players. Okay.
So, in full disclosure, there was an issue, there was things that we were
Or
dealing with.
Snapchatting
We
or
were
anything like that,
dealing
yeah.
with some things like that,
All right.
working with Joe and with that. Joe Spossato, our interim tech director, so we moved that, we trained our coaches so they no longer have that option.
Yeah.
Our attorney, Sean Sweeney, would tell us all day long, we don't want that to happen. We do
Yeah.
not want to be having individual conversations on our phones with students.
Yeah.
So that has all been stopped and we go through our platform now of Google.
And there's a record of everything sent by coaches, so
Yep.
if there was like a dispute, the district has the record.
It's been, I'm way out of line, but in terms of, that we're gonna talk a little bit later on about something we put in place that Joe's put in, it's called BARK now, BARK, right? So we have that for across our entire district now, so if anything is inappropriate or any certain words that come up, our administrators are notified. I think we put that, Joe started putting you on spot, was that this week we put that in play?
Within the last week, yes.
Last week. Which is, by the way, is zero cost to our district, so we're really happy to have that in play. More added work for our admin, I know, but it's also a huge protection for our district.
Thanks, man. Anything else? Anything else you want to tell us, or is that good? Yeah. Cool. All right. Thanks for coming in. Yeah, I know this game's going on, so.
Yeah, when Matt leaves, I'm gonna open up that door, because you have to have the door open, but I don't want it,
All right, what do you got?
Sorry. So next on the list is strategic plan, and I'm going to introduce a colleague and a friend of mine, Pam, in a second. So as you've heard me say multiple times, this district, our district, is a really good school district, but we certainly want it to be a great school district. Again, I'll go back to Jim Collins, good to great all day long. But one of the major pieces that we are missing is a strategic plan, and you heard me say that multiple times. There are a lot of good things happening, but our strategic plan will be our true north for the next 5 years. Once we have a well-thought-out plan, this will drive the district, this will drive the direction our district will go. And one of the best parts of our strategic plan is it'll get input from all our stakeholders, and Pam will tell you about that shortly. Not only students, parents, teachers, staff, admin, school committee, select board, town managers, community members. I tell you this because everyone will be a part of and own this part of the strategic plan. So when our meetings are held at any level, whether it be a school committee meeting, whether it be a select board meeting, a budget meeting, we'll remind everybody about our strategic plan, that we all agreed on this plan together. The biggest part that, you know, based on what Mike was saying in his chairman's report about hiring your next superintendent, one of the best gifts that we can give the next superintendent that comes on board, and trust me, and both the people that will be presenting in a second, as well as myself as retired superintendents, will tell you, having a well thought out strategic plan will be one of the most important gifts. I made sure before I retired from Hampton Wilbraham that was the gift that gave John Provost, the new superintendent that came in there. That creates that plan. You know what's taking place for the district. That first year is not a year that the superintendent's trying to figure out and get to know everybody. Here's the plan. It's sort of like, here's the baton, you take it and run with it. And I think that's really important. We met earlier, our admin team, about 4 o'clock today. We've been working on the strategic plan and having conversations about it since I came here at the very beginning of the year. Everyone of our admin team truly believes, and I say that with them all sitting in the room, that this is the direction we need to go. We need to have a strategic plan so that we know what direction we're going in terms of business, finance, fields, curriculum. Every single aspect of our district will be taken into account, and that will be so extremely important for us to have. The other part that you'll hear Pam talk about is about the portrait of a graduate. There's work that has been done in that, and that will tie in really nice to that. It's not being put away, but that will be tied in really nice to the strategic plan. And the last part is, this will be our living document. This will not be a document that we just put away on the shelf. This will be what drives us as our goals for the next superintendent, the goals of the district, goals for our principals. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce you a colleague of mine, Pam Gould, who we started our infancy as superintendents together way back. And she's here with Zeph, help me on the last name. Zeph Genetti, who will give us a quick presentation about what strategic plan is, because a lot of people have a different idea of what a strategic plan is. And it's important for everybody to have a clear understanding sitting in this room and what our community knows about what we're going to be doing with the strategic plan. Pam, I can send that
I'll
over.
let Zeph introduce himself first, and then I will introduce a little bit further, and then we'll.
I'm Zeph Genetti, retired educator, retired as superintendent of Mansfield, 20-year middle school principal, and before that, music teacher, fine arts director, and I'm happily working as a consultant, not interested in being an interim anywhere, so I want to lay that out there up front. I heard the conversation, and we are really, Pam will tell you, we love doing this kind of work because it's the passion of the work that we've done over our careers. And this is the fun part of the work without all of the things that makes the job of the superintendent not fun. So I'll pass it over to Pam.
Thanks, Zeph. So yes, Pam Gould, I retired 3 years ago as a superintendent, but Al and I were in our first NISIP program together. And so what you would find in a district, and I believe what you currently are working off of right now, in that program, we were all guided to do kind of a district improvement strategy, which is a good document, but it's a very kind of simplistic, usually done internally with your administrators and things like that. I am as Al said, a huge believer in not only the finished document of a strategic plan, but the process that you engage in as a school community. I heard earlier that there are things going on, right? So not to say that a strategic plan fixes everything, but as I listened to the gentleman speak at the beginning, all I kept thinking was, these are things that you could begin to address in a strategic plan, whether it's communication, finance and facilities, all those kinds of things that I think, again, it doesn't fix it just by doing the plan, but you at least get onto a place where you're all speaking the same language. I'm way older than most of you, and so I started, when I first did my very first strategic plan as administrator with our administrative team, I was an assistant principal, it literally sat on a shelf. We did it because we was told to do it. I didn't ever agree with that, and by the time with Al, I did on my very last year, we worked in our community to develop a strategic plan that was left with the brand new superintendent. It gave him a roadmap that he could, now, he's gonna tweak things as he goes on, understandable. But that gave him a 5-year plan to settle into the district and figure out where they needed to go.
And at a bigger level, it's really the district's plan, it's the school committee's plan.
Absolutely.
Because the final step of the process is developed by a committee, but it's approved by the school committee, so it becomes your guiding document for setting district goals,
Yep.
goals for your new superintendent, which then transfer into principal goals, school improvement plans, right down to teacher professional development plans. So it really is the template for improving And as we go through the plan, we talk about developing the plan. The first phase of the plan is where we gather data. And that's really the strength of, and the difference between a superintendent's entry plan and a strategic plan such as this, is that we gather a ton of data up front, internal data. We have forums with all of the major stakeholders, the surveys, and all of that data is used to inform the process. So there's nothing that comes out in that final document of a plan that isn't grounded somewhere within that data that has been collected and looked at by the committee as we go through the process.
And Jeff said it, I'm a more visual person than he is. I always envisioned, and I would talk to my school committee about the idea that the strategic plan became that umbrella document for a school committee, that every single thing that you did, I had a standing agenda item on my meetings every month that we talked about what was going on with, where are we in the strategic plan? But the school committee sets their goals around that. The superintendent and their team sets their goals around it. Your team principals set your goals, the teachers set their goals, so that it's all in that silo. Again, you're all working from that same roadmap. Again, doesn't fix some of the problems, but at least has that community understanding the why.
So the question too is why hire a consulting firm?
Yes.
And we are extremely busy doing strategic plans right
We're
now.
working on 8 right this minute.
Right. And so the trend, when Pam and I were doing this work many years ago, superintendents developed their own plan, but current thought process around strategic planning is it's really important for the superintendent to participate in the process, not run the process. And from a community standpoint, it adds a whole different layer of transparency. When you're looking at budget, you're looking at facilities, to have a facilitator come in, facilitating firm, and talk and guide everyone through the process. And our fingerprint is not on the document. It is truly a community document, but it's powerful to have the superintendent be part of the process and working rather than driving the process.
Well, and in this situation, which again, you guys are in a little bit of a unique situation where you have an interim, or whatever you do next year as you make that vote tonight, if it still stays as an interim another year, that again takes the fingerprint from the interim off of that.
And
Because it isn't their plan.
And another piece, having a strategic plan in place when you start your search for a new superintendent is you're going to be interviewing candidates with a template of improvement that the district has already developed. And you have the ability to ask candidates, this is our plan, you see the roadmap, how are you going to implement this plan? It's a really good, strong starting point for your search process and looking for a new superintendent, I think. So you're in a good position. And portrait of the graduate, you want to?
Yeah, because we're going to show you the process that we would use, but it's really important to me. It came up with your admin team, this discussion of all the work that you put into a portrait of a graduate, or portrait of a learner, some districts are calling it. They're 2 separate documents to me. A strategic plan is that guiding document that helps the community, it helps the school committee, finance and facilities, teaching and learning, kind of that overarching. Portrait of a graduate, portrait of a learner are the skills and attributes you expect your children to graduate the Berlin-Boylston Public Schools with. That is different. And they should, start to overlap. But the point is, a student, to be very honest, is never looking at a strategic plan. But they will understand what your portrait and all those skills and attributes that are. And that's really important. What I did in Sandwich when I retired from Sandwich was we implemented and put that right into the plan. It was goal number 1. So that it stayed in the forefront of all of us. So that became our first goal, and then we went after that. So you guys will do whatever you want. But so the process, because I also know you have a lengthy meeting, and I don't want to stand in the way between you and like 11 p.m. I think
That's the
Then they're
over-under right now.
All right. So we run kind of like what we consider like a 3-part process. If you're not on the committee, some of this won't be as important to you, but the beginning is that phase 1 where we have done some initial meetings, but there is still a decision to be made if this is the direction you're going to go. And so if we go this direction and there is a contract signed, what we would do is we would work with your central office admin team to develop a timeline. One of the discussions that we had with Al was this idea. I just think districts are facing all kinds of financial crunches. There's no doubt about that. So one of the things that we offered, again, I've known him for a while. That's our running joke between Al and I. I didn't have to go to my boss. He got the discount, friends and family discount. I begged and pleaded. And so our prices have just gone up, and I told her, I'm like, seriously, I started talking with him about this a long time ago. So it could work. But anyway, part of it is, when you do it, when we break some meetings in the spring and then some in the fall, is you get to put it in 2 different fiscal years. It makes it a little bit more palatable for communities and committees without that. But, so we would get phase 1 in as early as possible, getting those meetings. We would start our focus groups. We run a series of 5 focus groups. You get to, as a community, decide what you want. Typically, students, staff, parents, administrative team, community. And now this is where you get to get a little political. Who is important for you? Sometimes what districts do, especially in a regional school, you invite strategically your board of selectmen, whatever you call them in your town, from each town. Some people invite the police and fire. They show up.
Right.
FinCom. It's all, that depends on what you think politically would be good to have some people to be able to have some say. While that's going on, we're developing a survey. We have a gentleman that is one of our team members. We use SurveyMonkey. So he will work with Al and Sally, and they will develop, we have templates, as you can imagine, but they can be tweaked depending on what's important in this community.
And that goes out to parents, staff, students.
Everybody. And so the survey would go out. We then start.
So Pam, I'm sorry to interrupt you, so I know that's a real important piece, right? So I
Yeah.
know we've talked in this community here, school committee about like surveying, right?
Yeah.
And getting how families are feeling and
Yes.
that whole culture piece.
It's huge.
This will tap out to everybody. in this
Everybody.
community, right? Not just parents, but also people living in the community.
Well, we also, do students have a student activity period? Or like a
To the flex
a
block.
flex block or anything in your school? Okay. Sometimes we find we get a much better response rate, obviously, when you're using an advisory time.
By the way,
As it's
the day.
given to them, whereas as opposed to like any human being. You just say, hey, fill out the survey. I might forget, I might do that. So sometimes we find, and this is up to you guys, but even if you don't have one, if you can find a time where you might be able to get the students 15 minutes or so, your response is amazing. You get some
It's
really
such
good
valuable
feedback.
data we're
It's
getting from the
huge
entire
data.
community.
It really is.
Elementary as well, or is it just high school?
This is your call, but we typically definitely do high school, middle school. If you really want, where does your elementary end, 5th grade?
Yeah.
You might want to try the 5th grade. I'm not saying but give it a shot.
And we do middle schools frequently when they're part, we do 5th grade typically when they're part of the middle school.
I know.
So that's kind of,
I would never tell you what not to do. The reality is, kindergarten you're not going to get. So that's up to you guys. We will put it out
but
there.
but it's important to note though, based on your question, when we run the forums and we meet with the
Yeah.
students, high school, some districts do middle school too.
Yeah.
We tell the students, even if it's just high school, make sure you talk about your middle school years, talk about your elementary experience, some of the students moved into the district, what was that like, what it was like for kids that have been here since preschool. So we try to have them represent their past experience as well, not just their current experience. So we
Yeah.
do try to tap into that data through the forums.
We generally ask 3 questions in the forums. Simple 3 questions. What are the strengths of the district? What are the challenges that you face? And then what are the opportunities? And a lot of times we're pretty decent at what we take that challenge and what could we do for that and try to
So
pull that to our people.
the challenges present opportunities.
Because that in a survey and then all of the data that would be put into, what we do is we provide the district a series of folders. They will dump in data, every single thing they can think of, whether it's MCAS data, whether it's student mental health surveys, all kinds of
Budget
stuff.
data,
Budget data,
staff.
everything. Will go into these folders and then, so what we do is we run a series of 6 meetings. During these 6 meetings, we are looking at your current mission, your vision, core values. Assuming, again, if you're working on a district improvement strategy, you probably have something, but you might want to revisit those, depending on how old they are.
And see where they line up with your budget or
Yeah.
graduate. So
At meeting number 2, we do a data analysis meeting. We facilitate, we break you up into 3 different groups, and we put data in folders depending on what group you're in, so that it gets overwhelming, as you can imagine, to look at data. And so we strategically put certain things in different
we use
pockets.
data mining tools and we
Yeah.
guide the groups through the process, looking for trends and patterns that come across in that data. So
And they come out, it's amazing
Yeah.
what you find from it. And then meetings 3 through 6 just become us kind of continuing to work through what then become your overarching goals, what are your initiatives within that goal, and then on kind of all that timeline in it. And by the end of the thing, when we're getting towards after meeting 6, we present the community, the school district with a draft. It is brought to school committee. It is voted on because we don't do any graphic design until it's been voted on at the school committee to make sure there's no changes, which is fair. And so then at the end, what we produce, someone said it earlier, and this is where it sounds kind of shticky. What's the story you're trying to tell? And I am a believer in that, is what are you trying to make the community and have them help them understand what you're trying to do. And so when we talk with our graphic design person, I'll just show you a couple of them just so you can understand.
We ask communities to come up with a theme. What is a
What might
theme?
be going on?
We do a lot of seacoast communities. There's always some sort of nautical type.
Always.
theme. But we did Neshoba's, and they had the Great Road because all of the schools in town were on that. We called it the Great Traffic Jam because we could never get there. But there's a theme that will be developed that the committee will decide to.
So what we do is we give you 2 documents. One of them is what we call a dashboard, but that's what you can publish. You can put it on your classrooms, you can put it on your website, you can put it everywhere. But it's a very simple, gives you what your mission and vision are, your core values, and those kind of levers of where you're trying to improve. All that detail of those comes in the next document we give you, which is a much lengthier. You'll put it on your website, but it's a much lengthier document. But this is where the story is being told. We do a lot of, let's put some pictures of kids. This is what you're about, right? So put them in there. What do we value? We joked earlier with this admin team. Dartmouth is a farming and coastal community, so that was the story they wanted to tell. They're proud of that. But you can see, we put all this documentation in, the graphic design person does it all. Throughout the process, we're asking your team to be dumping in, we have a folder for photos, as high resolution as possible. And then it just goes so that we get see how what they did, they built right in. They were also very proud of their portrait of a learner that they had worked on the year before. We implemented it right into the entire plan. So that they would understand that. And then you just get to time, we see these kinds of things, so we just do that.
There's a huge accountability piece on there as well too, and you'll see that timeline there. Kim, if you just move up one slide, right? Like, we're not only telling the community, we're telling, school committee, all of us, like, this is the plan we're all working on together. This is the timeline we have, and this is the success we're hoping to have as well too. This truly is what we need. It's truly what we need to help guide us. And like I said to you earlier, our admin team is in complete agreement as well too. I think this is what we need as a district, as a community, to really help guide us for the next 5 years.
So you're identifying your big rocks. Where are your big rocks that you want to move? And then below the big ones, typically 3 to 5. And then what does the work look like under that? What is the timeline? And then the school committee is provided with an opportunity to have updates as you go through the 5 years of the plan of where you are in meeting. And it should be a living and breathing document that, no one saw COVID coming and everyone had to have a different game plan. So when things happen, you have to have that flexibility to adjust within your plan as well as you move forward.
And it's going to hold us a little accountable as well too, right? So when we're talking about in their first goal right there, right? Looking to do a curriculum review, right? So what does that look like, right? We talk about, I've spoken to Joe before we even hired a 5-year technology plan. What does that look like? Here's where it's going to be. Here's where it's held. Here's where you're going to expect it to be completed by. So it holds all of us accountable, and then you guys can say, okay, where is this? Because this is where it's, instead of all of these mini conversations, a lot of blinking lights going on, this is where we're headed for. We can refer to this at all times and making sure we get the work done we need to get done in the next 5 years.
You might have, again, I'm looking at this very simplistically because I heard one gentleman speak, but there's the budget, right? That's going on everywhere. It might be that you have a communication plan around your budget. Because clearly that might be something that needs to be better. Doesn't mean you're not trying to do your work, but it might be better. It could be better. And what does that look like? One of the districts I'm working in was literally one of their main goals was communication. And it's simply around having a common platform for all the principals to work off of. They just didn't have that. So as a parent, if your kid is in 3 different schools, it is a nightmare. They're doing it differently in every different building for a parent. And so all the little things like that, but what's the plan?
And even, you know, the question that was asked about our athletic director, okay, so what's communication going back and forth by coaches? So we say that's happening, but we can memorialize that by putting it in our strategic plan. So it's underneath technology, yep, there it is. We said we're gonna do it, here it is listed. I think we got a lot of things going on, and I think we just need to have it housed in one place, that we all can refer to it, and we can all hold each other accountable, say, why are we doing this? Or, great idea, we're gonna hold off of that, because we all agreed that for the next 5 years, this is what we're doing.
And the
That's
beauty
not on
of
the
this,
plan, guys. Why are we doing this?
and the beauty of these plans, it's all grounded in the data. It's not someone has an idea, or I think this might be the case. It has to be grounded in what we analyze out of the data to support what we're doing. So it really gives the plan some teeth. You have questions for us?
Questions? We talked a lot.
Anyway, yeah.
Easy. So I heard you talk about parents and students. Do you also include like the staff, the teachers?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
They have a forum, they have a survey, and when we put the
And
committee
they're all
together,
committed.
the committee's typically around 20 people, and it's made up of community members such as school committee, could be other elected officials, students, staff, administrators, teachers. So that's the group. You really want a representative group of the community that's involved in that process.
Okay, and then, so for like the meetings, my other question is, does everybody have to go to every meeting? Or could we say, all right, we're gonna send Jess to this first meeting, and then I'll go to the second one? Or does it have to be the same?
I would
20
advise
people?
against that. Now, emergencies happen, right? But if you say to this, to your constituency that we're gonna run meetings X time of day, these are the dates, because that's one of the things you would publish before you try to get people on the
Okay, so
committee.
we pick the date.
I just think for flow,
Yeah,
doesn't mean people can't come and watch a meeting.
But part of it is that some of the work it's not a hard set that
Yeah.
we're finishing this part of the project at this
Yeah, they
meeting.
lose the
We'll
mojo.
work through.
Gotcha.
We'll have 3 different groups look at mission statements, write mission statements. We might come up with a common one, but then we'll give people time to think about it before the next meeting and come back and meet it again. If you have mission statement alone, if you have rotating folks coming through, you're gonna be rewriting that every time.
It'll take us 6 meetings to get the mission
Right,
statement
it's
done.
coming through the
But
door.
what I would advise, you're gonna probably have 1, maybe 2 members of your school committee on there. I would make it a standing item while you're working on it to report out of what's happening. So that people they know, be open about this whole process. Absolutely.
And then it's no longer, as we know, that sometimes people are saying, well, it's the community, it's the school committee, it's the superintendent. Everyone has ownership in this, right? Everyone from the community, so it's all of our plans, right? So we're all on board. It's not pointing fingers, we're all working on this together as well.
I just have a couple of comments. So first of all, something that stood out to me. I like the idea of an outside entity doing it, because as you pointed out, it's not just superintendent driven, it's not just school committee. It's someone who does have a stake in the game, kind of guiding it, and that's extremely helpful, because it is a huge undertaking. I also like the idea of having a strategic plan when a new superintendent comes in, because, what they tell you when you go for leadership positions in graduate school, they say, the first year, don't make any big changes, come in, see how the ship is running, don't make, and so this would be, they have a course that they would go on.
It is a gift, as the
It
superintendent
really
described.
is, so they can
Absolutely.
come in and watch, and the ship is kind of running itself at that point, but they're helping. But the other thing that I can't help but notice is your enthusiasm. Like, I don't think I've ever been excited about a strategic plan.
Yay! All right.
I'm like, let's do it.
I
We really enjoy doing the work.
We truly do love it.
It's
You can
fun.
tell, you can feel
We
it.
had a new executive director come in, and we were a little nervous, it's kind of a new boss, and she said something at a meeting we were at, she's like, when will you guys just stop doing this? And he said it, when it stops being fun. We thoroughly enjoy, and for us, like, I'm a people person, I love getting to, the people that I have met during this, we now go to conferences, we know all these
Being a
people.
superintendent's not fun. I'm married to one. It's not fun. I don't enjoy it. It's just, there's rare moments where you come home and go, this was a great day.
Really?
Although those disappointed people at a very measurable rate. And this is, people smile and they say thank you, and it's all of the fun of the work with none of the,
Picture
Other
Pam, myself, and Lauren Bedet, their first year superintendents, we got ourselves in so much trouble all the time. We were like the kids getting in trouble as the new superintendents.
Well, we would be the ones doing it, so this is who you got. So if that works for you, then that's fabulous.
Pricing.
What did you say was the timeline from, we say yes?
Yep.
To finished product? What
So-
was the timeline?
That can be a little bit of, essentially what we would do is split the cost in half. Now, there's no probably a real set point of which meeting, is it
Oh,
better to
typically
get
like
through
2 months,
meeting
3 months, a
3?
year.
it's typically takes, it's usually like a 4-month process when you start earlier in the school year. Starting at this point of the year can be difficult in that May and June are very busy to
Yeah,
get people
it-
together,
it's tough to get
especially
it
high
done.
school staff, students, with everything going on. So realistically, we'd be able to do most of, I would think, phase 1 by the end of the school year with forums and those types of things.
And maybe a meeting or two, maybe.
Yeah, maybe a meeting or two, but the scheduling piece is a little bit challenging, but the typical length is around 4 months from start to finish of the whole process.
One of the good things we said to your admin team though before was, if a district is starting it fully in the fall, by the time we start meetings, we're in good October, beginning of November. The good thing is, if we did a kind of what we're calling half and half, you would literally, your meetings would start right up again in September. There's no lag time. So you would be done your plan, likely, give or take, end of October, beginning of November, so that you could roll it out after and it's honestly a good time for our graphic design person too, because as you can imagine, I just said, we're working on 8 plans right now.
Yeah,
She's
we
gonna
have,
die.
there's 4 of us that do the
June
work,
and
so
July.
available dates for us becomes a challenge.
Yeah.
But September, October,
But you're in great
typically
shape.
not busy
Yeah.
times.
So
You would be
over
able to
under,
probably went to the holiday, without a doubt, holiday break with a plan done.
so
Yeah,
that
having-
was what my target was gonna be, because if we're talking about superintendent search.
And that's exact timing,
Absolutely,
and Al and I
absolutely.
talked about that,
Yeah, it'll line up, yeah.
so.
Yeah, and I like the split for the financial reasons. I
Yep.
don't know how Aaron feels
A
about
lot
that,
of
but it seems
districts
like
do.
that's more
Yeah.
palatable.
And we talked about that, right, making sure.
Yes.
Do we have to vote on this, or how do we do?
So I would like school committee vote on this, because eventually when we develop a strategic plan and when it's done, we'll be bringing it to you step along the way, but also you need to vote on the final strategic plan. The other part I just want to let you know is that, so even when I move on and you guys are still here and the work is still being done, that there's still a resource to us, right? So I don't want you to think that once November comes and it's all done, they say goodbye, that they're a resource to help us. So again, it shouldn't be just a document we do and like, okay, we're good for the next 5 years. It's the job of this administration and school committee and community to keep looking at this document, keep working at it, and having it as an agenda item all the time, saying, where are we at? What are we doing? Where's the 5-year tech plan? Where's the curriculum review? Where are we with special education? Because you said this is what was going to happen.
What's that?
Yeah, please,
Yeah.
go ahead, ask the question. So,
Throw us some numbers.
yeah, absolutely.
Are we voting tonight, or what's the?
I would like you to vote today if you good with that.
Well, I mean, let's see how it goes. I mean, it's not on here for a vote.
Oh, good point. Very
So
good.
it's not on here for a vote.
And I don't handle rejection well either. so.
It's a budget issue. We
That's
might
right.
want to hear more from Aaron about budget. So
Okay.
I don't know if we'll be able to vote tonight, but we do have another meeting this month. So
Okay, excellent. Because we really want to start moving on this. And like I said, everyone in this room really feels like this is the direction we need to go on this stuff.
I like it, I just want to see. Yeah, so if we're not voting, maybe we get the numbers.
Yep,
We can look
absolutely.
at them, we don't have to discuss them tonight, if we're not voting.
He has all of that, Al.
All right, perfect.
We have the presentation too.
In the drive, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, I sent Al the scope of sequence and stuff that we had, and also some, the samples, I think.
Perfect.
Yep.
So for the next, when we
You know what,
vote, we'll
I
add-
apologize. I didn't talk to Mike about putting this as a vote on there for this, so that's.
I think we can get it done this month.
Yes.
Maybe just not tonight.
Fair enough, absolutely. Agreed. Good.
Yeah, we meet literally the Tuesday after February break. I mean, nobody's doing anything between now and February.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're all.
No, we're voting tonight. You start tomorrow.
I was gonna say, I'm actually looking forward to next week.
I was gonna say that. Why are you letting them off easy?
All right.
I was gonna say.
Thursday,
All right,
yeah.
okay, thank you, Seth.
Thank you.
All right,
All right.
thank you very much. Appreciate it, guys.
If you have any questions, ask Al, he knows how to get us out, they know how to get away. So.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, that was great.
All right.
Matt, do you want us, where it says student council rep, Matt, you want to take you're on?
Yeah, sure. I'll just, like, I'm gonna go through real quick. I got kind of a short list of things that have happened. So right now, our high school student council is doing something called Kindness Week. We got, like, it's kind of like a spirit week kind of thing, just some, like, kind of like dress up. So tomorrow's wearing blue for support inclusion. Yeah, just kind of like a simple, easy thing to, you know, spread some kindness and love around. Recently, we've had something awesome going on. We've had AP Literature exhibitions. So AP Literature is a class that you can take as a senior in high school. And since like starting in like October, so it's, you know, it's like 3 or 4 months of work the students put in to put together these presentations that they give to the high school and teachers and admin in the auditorium. And they are incredible how much work goes into these to answer some really awesome questions. It's very like creative. It's like they pretty much get full control over what they do. They're wicked awesome to watch in person and see what they come up with. And then also another great thing that happened was the Quebec trip. So our French teacher, Mr. Wiedemann, put together a trip to Quebec for, I want to say it was like around 50 students. I don't know exactly. It was around 50 students went to Quebec for a long weekend. It was a lot of fun. I unfortunately did not go, but a lot of my friends went. I heard it was awesome. Lots of awesome things going on there. They did like dog sledding and stuff. It was a good time. I just wanted to point that out. That was a pretty awesome thing that happened. Props to Mr. Wiedemann for putting that together too.
Matthew, thank you. Any questions for Matthew?
I just wanted to acknowledge Mr. Wiedemann. He really just get that trip off the ground and take 50 kids out of the country to get their passport. These kids all might never have gotten a passport. Now they have passports, now they'll travel. Like, it was really, he did amazing work and all the chaplains and everything. I'm very happy.
And quite an adventurous trip, but you got stuck on the border there for a little while, right? In Canada, right?
But I know that Mr. Minihan was there.
Yep.
The one that was like expediting you through the border was reassuring.
Yes,
It was
absolutely.
nice.
And I, as Mrs. Segura was keeping me informed, I was keeping Scooping informed about getting you guys back into the United States safely as well, too. It's great.
Other than the border situation, what's the coolest story from out of that trip that you've heard?
Oh boy, I heard some awesome stories about dog sledding, like, because you hop up on a sled with dogs, and I was surprised to hear apparently how like ridiculously fast you start going when they start running. But there's also some what's the other thing?
Tobogganing.
Yeah.
Tobogganing.
That was some videos of that, like they pick up some speed. I was impressed.
And just like beautiful sightseeing. And
Oh yeah, lots of awesome
Going to Europe.
photos. It was definitely, yeah, it was something else.
Yeah, no, you think the teacher, I don't know the name, I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Wiedemann.
Wiedemann, yeah, I mean, I did a trip similar to that in high school, and it completely changed my outlook on everything throughout life. It was more of an exchange, not just a field trip, but to this day, our families are still in touch, and any type of opportunity like that we can promote would be cool. Thanks.
Are they doing it again? Because I remember we voted on it, like, remember?
Around this time last year.
Yes.
They planned it for a year. They took a full year.
That's what I mean. We voted last January for this trip, and I haven't seen it come through, so just wondering, are they
Every other.
So it'll be every other year, I mean, because it's a long time to plan.
Yes.
And it also allows families to pay it off in increments. And students also can contribute when it's, so it's like a payment plan. So I talked to Mr. Wiedemann and he said he would like to do it every 2 years. But that doesn't mean that we won't have other staff members who want to do other trips. We have other people who are interested in doing and supporting those types of experiences. So
Lisa, is it specific years of French students that are allowed to go, or any French student, like who is asked to go?
It was any high school student that was taking French, so it wasn't even, so it was like, they mixed. Like, if you just take the whole 8th grade on trips, they stay in their group. When you take 9th through 12th grade French kids that are all mixed together, if your friends aren't in French, like, they were all mixed. It's just like, it was really great.
And to your point, Beth, even the process of, they have passports now, right?
Yeah.
Like they've already traveled outside of the country at this
They're
age.
more like now to
Yeah.
use it.
And so those are the things we need to celebrate, right? And we need to acknowledge, right? And that we put on our district website and we put in our strategic plan, like those are the stuff that we want to make sure that those are the things that draw students and families into our district, knowing these are the things that we're doing.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think also as an portrait of a graduate, like a global citizen.
Yeah.
I think it's so important to step out of our own boundaries.
Yep. Great. Thanks, Matthew.
Yes.
So just going back, I know my agenda is long today, school choice. So I have this on the agenda only to get some input from school committee on the direction you'd like me to go. I have asked my principals and assistant principals to give me anticipated openings for the 2025-2026 school year. And literally that's all I'm at this point, so I didn't know where we're going in this direction or not. I will have some data together for you for next school committee meeting. I just wanted to know if there's any direction you want me to go in or not to go.
Typically, we'll get the data, the enrollment data, everything. If there's any suggested openings or what from them, then we'll discuss that.
Okay, perfect. Good, excellent. The next thing, if I can just go a little out of order in mind, and by the way, I'll have that for you for the next school committee meeting. I'll make sure I have all that data for you with anticipated openings as well too. Renee, can I ask you to talk about the cell phone policy, just a little bit update on that? I know that's something that came through with the Attorney General's office, but she's gonna spearhead that for our district. Renee?
About mid to late January, the Attorney General's office, Andrea Joy Campbell had introduced the Study Act, which is a bill that would require all public schools to have formal policies regarding the use of cell phones, tablets, and any personal electronic devices on school grounds. So Al has, decided, rightfully so, we need to get ahead of this, right? Because this, and this has been a conversation prior in the district, right? But we have no formal policy at this time. So we have started a conversation just between Al and myself, and we wanted to first come to you to just bring this up. We thought the best approach would be to start having some informal conversations with all the stakeholders, attending hopefully, one of your policy subcommittee meetings, and then go to the PTO meetings at all three of the schools. We have student council groups, student advisory groups that we could attend, teacher team leader meetings. And then from there, try to regroup and think about forming probably a smaller focus committee. I would plan to create, a draft for you next month, I would think, of kind of a timeline of what that would look like. I know we have some meetings coming up. The end, after vacation, we have a student advisory meeting that we can kind of start some, conversations with students. PTO meeting is this week, so I think we would start the PTO meeting conversations. I would ask to be invited, obviously. I would love to start with your sub-policy committee meeting. That would be one of my first. I would love to attend, just kind of to see where you guys feel this needs to go. And then, kind of lay out a timeline of where we need to be so that we can write a policy to go forward with this, because this looks like an initiative that's gonna, come to fruition, for the state. So I think we just need to get ahead of this before the next school year. So if it's okay, I'll maybe be in touch, Mike, to see if we can do.
Yeah,
I can
absolutely.
come to a subcommittee meeting and go from there.
And there's gonna be some decisions the school committee and the community are gonna have to know, right? So Renee will gather that information. It's not black and white, right? So there's either, some are gonna say, no cell phones at all. Some are gonna say, keep it the way it is, and then there'll be a bit of ground. Like, there's a philosophy, and mine included, that it's an educational tool as well too, if used properly, right? So there's middle ground. So all that information she'll share with you, and they're telling you that, right? What pathway do you want to take? But we need to, as a community, decide what we're going to do with that. But we felt the first thing was best to gather information from everybody, starting obviously work first with school committee, and then working the way out to the community. I think you're also starting to see, expanding people's jobs, right? So Renee will now spearhead this cell phone media. This is a big undertaking, right, for ourselves as a district. Rich doing that safety piece as well too. So expanding their jobs and expanding the growth for them as well too. Questions on this at all?
There's also the student success and technology subcommittee too,
Oh.
and we did discuss, Lisa and I, in the spring as well. So I don't know, certainly there's overlap between the two committees.
Great point. I'm so sorry. I didn't, I should have had Renee go in the direction of policy, so we can
There's
actually.
overlap certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll make sure that there is a whole tech,
Yeah.
admin, tech committee as well too.
I have a question. So my understanding was that in the middle school, they're not allowed to use their phone during the day. That's a policy. I guess my
It's
question.
not a policy though, that's in the handbook.
Okay, but so that's a rule, right? That they have. to-
Yeah, but there's not, we don't have a district policy, which this act is asking all public
Okay.
school districts to have.
All right, and I agree with that. I totally agree, and I think we need to move forward with that. But I guess my question is, it's in the handbook, middle school kids aren't supposed to be using their phones during the day. Is that actually happening? Are we enforcing the policy or the rule as written in our own handbook?
To some extent.
How would that
Answer
change?
differently, but again, I don't have
It's
kids.
generally enforced in sixth grade.
Sixth grade, absolutely.
And then they
Um,
get
The thing, there's pieces, because again, some teachers use it as an educational tool, right? So depending on, those pieces, those need to be clarified in something really specific, right? So where if we, and again, with the help of technology, right? If there are certain apps that the teachers are using, because that is something that does occur. Like the kids like to use it as an excuse, but it is, especially in 8th grade, it is definitely something that's happening. We may need to call upon technology and say, what else do we need then on our Chromebook? Or is the Chromebook the best tool that we're using? I don't know, I'm just saying, right? So those are pieces that we're gonna need to really, again, that's why these kind of informal, if you will, conversations with each stakeholders are really important. To really, I would say that in structured time, yes, those procedures are always being followed. In unstructured time, no, not always, because what ends up happening is sometimes what we're seeing, and that's part of, I think, what the Attorney General's message is here too, because it's not only about cell phones, it's about social media, right? Is that students and, are using their phones, as adults are, so, because they don't know how to talk to one another anymore.
Yeah,
Right, and they're playing Blockbuster, and they're doing all these things, right? So there's a whole nother piece that doesn't really have anything to do with them even on anything that's really, distracting them from their education, because it may be at lunch. But they're not having that interaction piece. They're not having that piece of their social emotional growth being developed, right? So it is a bigger piece than just lock up your cell phone, right? And that's where we need, and I think that it's in the drive, that large packet
Yes.
that's shared, right? There's a lot there, right? So, and that's why I think this will take some time, but if we can, start working it through these groups and really get ahead of this now, because if they're asking, from what we understand, the Attorney General is really asking all public schools to come up with a formal policy, and it doesn't necessarily mean no cell phones. It just means, an actual policy. And again, this piece on social media, if there's policies and the Attorney General is then going to go forward to really work with some of these, the social media groups, that also hopefully will work, in tandem, right, together. That's the hope. But it's gonna take some time. We see every day things are changing around us, right?
This is a huge thing the Attorney General dropped on us, right? Huge thing. Here it is, right? And they put it to the local level. Like, what are you doing? So we just feel in fairness to school committee, Renee and I talked that we got to gather some information, right? And we'll meet with both subcommittee meetings, right? And talk to you guys about that and gather all that information so that this way, then when we present this to you, then you can help make a decision that you have some knowledge based on.
so we've been talking about cell phones for a while now. Who really knows? So this is not new to us. So I think we've all, except for Beth, because she's new to the committee, we've all voiced our opinions on how we feel about it. But I guess going back to the whole thing, how it's in our handbook that middle school kids are not supposed to be on their cell phones. I actually had the pleasure of subbing at lunch one day, it was over a year ago, and there were kids on their cell phones in the 8th grade at lunch. Can we please start following the policy in the handbook? That is my ask to happen immediately.
So it's a good question she brings up, because your answer to, it's in the handbook, but is it being followed completely? No.
Why not?
What would change if it was a policy versus
It
being
wouldn't,
a handbook?
well, it depends. It depends on what you have. If it's a bell to bell, no phones, they don't have their phones on.
Yeah.
It's in their homeroom. I mean, to me, right, good,
I
bad, or
guess-
different, that's the easiest thing.
I guess
Right.
what I'm asking, let's assume it was just the same rule, just as a policy, not in the handbook. What's the reason for not enforcing it? Is it just not enough people around to enforce it, or what is it?
The difference is that not all 6th graders have phones. By the
Yeah.
time they hit 7th and 8th, most of them have a phone, and now you're asking the teachers to police their pockets and all of that.
So, yeah, that's a question for you
So I think
guys.
it
So
becomes very difficult.
So
what is it like?
So, in lunch today, so we have, 6th and 7th grade lunch, and then we have, 8th grade lunch with some high school, and then the third lunch is all high school. So in the 8th grade lunch, I was constantly going over to a group of students, I'm like, put away your phones, put away your phones. I knew they were the 8th graders, but they were like so desperate. So they were like sticking it in their pocket. And then as soon as I walked away, they were like, shut it back out. And then I'm like, put it away.
And it's more usually a game, to be honest with you, than a text or a picture or it's this blockbuster thing, blaster
Are they
thing more than
playing
anything.
games between each other? I don't know.
But
But
you do-
either way, no, I guess the point is, and this is kind of a sore spot for me. If it's in our handbook and the rule is if you are in middle school, you're not supposed to use your phone during the day, why is it happening?
Well, I mean,
I don't care if it's hard or then it shouldn't be in the
There's a lot-
handbook.
there's a
I'm
lot-
not trying to be a jerk, but it's like we talked about this last year. If it's in the handbook and then if we're like, all right, no, this is too hard to enforce, it shouldn't be in the handbook. And then, yeah, we can make a policy and we'll have to figure out, do we have to physically lock phones down because people are so addicted to this drug that we can't put it away to eat lunch. I just think if it's in the handbook and we have it written as a rule, just like you can't bring a weapon to school or I can't come in with a glass of alcohol, we need to be enforcing what's in our handbook. There's no excuses.
And I think we are, but this is asking us to now create a policy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
We have no
want more.
choice, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, that's what's being asked of us.
Yeah, no, I
So
want more.
maybe part of it, so we do this policy, maybe part of this policy includes some sort of enforcement or punishment for breaking it,
Yes.
right? It can include that. But with the technology we have, Bark apps, the family settings on phones, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are things that we can block from certain
Just to
things.
speak to that,
Yes.
there's a lot of limitations when kids bring in their own devices
Yeah.
to what we can control, especially when it comes to mobile applications.
Right.
It's much harder to lock that stuff down.
Yeah.
Especially when we don't own the device.
So I mean, I'm just throwing things against the wall here, Joe. I mean, devices are not going away. We're trying to train these kids to be young adults to go out into the workforce. That's all you use out in the workforce is a device. You said some teachers use it as an educational tool. Absolutely, they should, and they should do more about it. Julie, we've had a lot of conversations about this back and forth. We're on opposite ends, I agree. I think there should be some sort of etiquette type training to go along with it. But to Joe's point, okay, we can't control them, but how many companies now have the BYOD policy, right? There are rules around it. There are ways to control it. Just like you have a math class where you say you can't use a calculator unless you pass a certain qualification or a test. You can't bring your phone out unless you've demonstrated that you've installed certain things to block certain things with. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of different ways we can get creative with it, other than just, sorry, you're a parent, but we're taking this decision away from you for your child, and we're telling you you cannot have your personal property on school. I think that it's a terrible thing to do. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's,
I love the idea of passing the test to see if you're responsible for contract or something like that. I mean, these are things that we need to, I think,
Yeah.
and I don't think the Attorney General is telling us
No.
what to do, just that we need to have something in place.
But if
so we
do-
can
So-
set those meetings up and.
You know,
right,
I
Jesse.
will absolutely, and I think these are the ways we need to think, just like it's really those 3 different ideas, and then, you know, they're asking districts to formulate their plan. I think that's
And
what we
having
need
a
to think
policy
about.
will give them a little more meat, right?
Yep,
We're taking away phones from them and the responsibility of holding on those phones and calling those parents and saying, you gotta come. So then what? Are you picking up the phone? Are we giving the phone back? I've been in that office, I can't tell how many times at dismissal where they're calling kids down to come retrieve their phones at the end of the day. I mean, it would be a full-time job. The other part of it, our attorney would say, really, you're gonna hold on to a $500, maybe $600 device, right, that are other kids' phones, and what happens if something happens to those phones, right? So there's a whole, I think that's what the Attorney General is asking us. Like, let's come up with a policy so that we can all as a district live by it and enforce it as well, too.
All right, so I guess the answer is, it's not being enforced because it's almost impossible to be enforced, because what are you supposed to do if a kid has their phone, aside from give them a suspension, and there's no policy, so.
And let's have that honest conversation, calling those parents and saying, we've taken your son or daughter's phone, and that they want to give back to their kids, right? So do we call parents and say, you gotta come pick up your phone with your child? Like, what is the policy? What are we gonna do about this? Rich, Lisa, anything?
Yeah, I mean, we do have a set guideline, and they are being redirected,
Yeah.
put the phone away, if something comes out.
Yeah.
That happens every time, if I see a kid who is in middle school that has a phone out, they're putting it away.
Yeah.
We usually give some form of a redirection, that's like a possibility with the child. But at the end of the day, if they need to be told a second time, they're putting it in the office, second time a parent needs to pick them up, third time they're just not bringing it in. So when we sit down and we have those meetings, so all those procedures are in place. You know, it's really hard to police the pockets of every, you know, middle school student in the building. But those practices are happening.
And they know, right, when I'm walking down the hallway here and I'm walking with you, Rich, and they see him coming, they're throwing it in their pocket, right?
That's
So
why they
that's-
all wear a hoodie sweatshirt, I mean, and the other thing is, they do use it appropriately at times, I mean, that is the other piece. And so, this is a bigger conversation, clearly, and so we wanna bring this to the table now, to just let you know, we'll be in touch with you guys, we'll be in touch with the various community groups, because it's something that we're being asked to do at this
It's the
time.
hoodies with the dress code.
And
Sorry, yeah, Lisa wants to say something. Lisa's dying to say something. Lisa's
So
dying.
I love the idea that you brought up being creative about teaching them how to use it appropriately. For as quickly as we put any policy in place,
Yeah.
those kids will work around it.
Oh.
They have burner phones, they all, I can tell you, they all have burner phones. So, yeah, oh yeah, you can take my phone.
And
Oh, take
there
my
is
phone.
walking around the school with 2 phones.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
For this.
Yeah, so there's that, but let me throw something out there, and I wrote this in my newsletter, if anybody, cares to read it. I'm like, why don't we give why don't the parents, if they don't want students to have that much technology and social media, get them dumb phones until they're in 8th grade. Get them dumb phones. If you don't want your kids on the internet, on their phone, I think it's important for them to have communication. I know parents think it's very important to have communication. A flip phone, get them a flip phone. They can text, they can call, they can get what they need, but they don't have that addictive social media part. The parents also have some responsibility in all of this as well.
Totally.
So speaking of social media, we had that earlier this year with the Attorney General came
Coming
up.
up in March as well too. with adults.
Community-wide or district-wide opportunities to come see that?
That's everybody in the community.
That's
Everybody,
March.
and we're actually doing it remotely, so she can
All right.
have, so people don't have to all come here to
Okay.
the
That's
auditorium.
in,
March.
yes, I saw that, yep,
Okay.
yep.
Is there a date that we can tell them?
Yeah, you both asked me that, yeah.
Well, there's one for, isn't Cindy's doing one?
No,
I saw
Cindy's
one
doing
in
one,
BES, right, with the police?
Yes, sorry, Mile. Just a technology thing, just to kind of, just introduce like social media and things like that. Parents have been requesting it and we want to offer that.
And so I don't know I don't know if BMS is doing one, but I saw another one at Tohoto as well, so that's probably the one that you're talking about.
I want to make sure, Megan, that you got your question answered about having that in the student handbook, right? So they are doing their very best to.
No, I get that.
They are.
I get it. It's just like it's a sore spot when it's like, it's a rule, and I get it. I'm a black and white rule follower. And I don't have kids that age yet, so that's caveat right over there. My kids are still young. They do what I say or I.
So you know.
Well, yeah, because I'm breathing down their neck all the time because they're little. But yes, I get it when they get to
They
that
have
age.
burner phones too.
I can't believe kids have 2 phones at that age. I don't know where they get the money. But anyways,
So I just want to
understood.
make one comment. I appreciate that you're enforcing it at the middle school because one of the problems that we have, and we all recognize this, is when they get to 9th grade, a lot of students leave and that's because there isn't a connection. So those real life connections and you said the word, Lisa, and it really is, I can relate, it's addictive. Like, I think we all touch our phones and, so it's really hard for them. So I appreciate your efforts and I know how hard it is to be like the warden. It's tough to go up to these kids and say, can you put it away? Can you put it away? But I appreciate the efforts because we want them to connect with each other. We want them to have memories and we want them to just enjoy the experience and not be like, geez, last year, I don't remember what I did at lunchtime.
The hardest part, this next generation of kids that are coming up, they're just watching their moms and dads all day long on their phone. And how many times we're going through a grocery store and you see kids in carriages with the phones in their
Oh,
hands.
yeah.
Already it's starting, right? So this next generation is coming up, it's going to be more difficult.
But I think parents are finally informed, like, I think some of the kids, people didn't know how bad it was. It's just coming out right now, the data, how addictive, like Facebook, like scrolling is physically like a drug and it's bad for your body.
Deliberately addictive too.
Yes, even though the creators of Facebook have said, I wish we could undo this, and I know I'm aging myself with Facebook because there's all these different things now, but I think this newer generation of parents is gonna be like how people are about Red Dyes now, like, they're gonna step forth and say, no, I don't want my kids because we know it's bad. But I don't know when that change will come, and I agree, I think we need parental buy-in on this. It can't just be the school trying to do it.
And so we're being proactive, right? So we're already on top of this and we want to make sure we knew, because this is out there, right? And we're going to get you as much information so you guys can help make a decision, both at both policy meetings and then eventually at school.
If it's okay, I'd like to just make one suggestion. So Julie Lee sent us a really great email
Oh,
about
yeah.
this topic.
Yeah.
And she had a couple resources that she recommended. One is a book and one is a podcast. And I think it might be a really good idea if we all, listen to that podcast and read that book so that we're all fully informed. So when we go to make a vote on this or make the policy, we'll know what all of the dangers are. And I just want to say one thing that might not be included in these resources that doesn't often get brought up, but I bring it up occasionally. All of these phones are emitting EMFs. And when you're in a room with, 20 different phones, blasting this, we got the Wi-Fi blasting, it is affecting our bodies, it affects our blood-brain barrier. And getting these out of the classroom and then trying to, mitigate the blast from the Wi-Fi would help also our kids with their health, their physical health and mental health.
I believe Lisa had written something too about the book too, the anxious generation.
I
One
have
after
read
another.
it.
Yeah. But you had mentioned the anxious generation and it's something you had written, I would forget from what direction.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I was just
Yeah,
gonna say,
multiple.
I want to start a book club for the anxious generation. I did put out a Google form. I only got 2 responses. So, if any of you want to join in with me, I would be happy. I can send out that link again.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. If you can send me that information that Julie shared with you, that'd be great.
Okay.
Great. Okay, I'm so sorry. That was, Renee, thank you. There's a lot of work
Thank
obviously
you.
ahead
I
for
wasn't
us.
trying to be a jerk. I think, I appreciate it. No, I
Those are-
don't want to.
That's what we're,
They're not
that's,
doing their
those
job,
are
but.
good conversation. Our K-12 school student and information protection. So I just want to make updated, this is the immigration updates, right? And so how we as a district are handling this. Just so you're aware, I went for training as a superintendent on this. We are, as an admin, we went through all this training as well too. I sent you a link as school committee members, you can go for this training as well too. We are prepared, right, in case something should take place in our district. I think Joe's gonna send a slide up there for you as well too. If for any reason someone should come in, we need to make sure we realize that our kids are protected in our district. That is our job. We protect that information, we protect our students. We were trained, we had a training that took place that if someone should come in wanting information about our child, we cannot provide that. FERPA forbids us from giving that information. If they do, they have to produce a warrant. And we're sort of trained on what a warrant should be looking like and what it should look like coming from the federal government as opposed to coming from ICE. The third step that our administrators were told to do is, and then they call central office, which would be the contact person. We have an emergency text group message as well too, so in case something like that should happen. And then we also have an attorney on record that we will be using. Sean Sweeney is not the attorney on record for that. It would be Katie Minalt, who is someone that I've worked with in the past. She is our person that if something like this should ever take place, that's her expertise. We would call her and use her as a reference. I want people in the community to know that we were trained in this. We're hoping that this won't ever happen, but if it does happen, we have policies and procedures in place to keep our students and their parents and information safe. Questions on that? We're good? Okay, excellent. Next thing, I'm quicker. Town reports. I want to thank our principals, Mike, as well as our chairperson. We submitted, and Nicole, obviously, compiling all that. We gave both town reports to both Berlin and Boylston, so they both have their reports, and they'll be published annually with information regarding our school districts as well too. And I think that was put in your drive as well too, so you've seen that as well too. Lastly, a little bit of a vocational update. So it's something I'm still pursuing. I know the last time I met with you, I gave you some information about Assabet Valley, and that there is openings for our students more so in their sophomore year. So we shared that with the high school. We shared that with our guidance counselors as well too. I am spending tomorrow night actually at Monty Tech. I'm spending it there with a couple of school committee members, looking at some possibilities and opportunities for us as well too. So I'm looking at all different regional school districts around us, giving our kids opportunities. Just preliminary conversation. I know a couple of school committee members there, and they invited me to their sort of open house and training of what takes place there. I'll keep you updated with that as well too. So yeah, just getting some more information and more knowledge. It's not something that's going to happen overnight by any means. But John Malika, who is a colleague of mine and a teacher, he's on school committee there, so we're going to spend some time tomorrow night.
Shrewsbury has an agreement with Leicester now. And
Yep.
they bought Becker College,
Yep.
so they have 10 spots promised to them or
Sure.
something along those lines. I don't know if it sounds like they're at the ground level. Like, I don't know if that's an opportunity as well.
Sort of what I'm trying, I hate to even say this publicly, sort of what I'm trying to do at Monty Tech, right? Just opening up a door and seeing this opportunities for our kids for different vocations. Because again, as we were clarified, that, you know, the opportunities that students from Berlin might have and students from Boylston don't have at Assabet Valley. So we're just looking to create other opportunities for our kids. Vocational is a thriving opportunity for our students, right? So we want to give them every opportunity they can have. So just looking into that, I'll give you a further update after my meeting tomorrow night. What else is on mine? Anything else? I think that's it. I apologize for the length of that, but thank you. That's my report.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is our administrator updates. We can start at the top with Lisa.
Oh, so theirs were just read only?
Oh, yeah,
They were just read
you're
only?
right, my
Oh,
bad.
I'm.
No. So if you want, I held them off for next month, but theirs are all read only, but if you want them to give them an overview.
No, we get that. Does anybody have any questions on you?
I like
Yeah.
1 minute, 10,000 view next time would be great for the people that are watching.
Yeah, next time we can do that.
That's perfect. Sorry about that.
All right, then up next is Director of Curriculum, Sally.
All right, so I have a couple of items that I've submitted for tonight. Just go over them quickly. The first one is the district report cards. This is something that the Department of Ed issues every winter. They just came out on January 31st. It's basically an overview of much of the information that was already contained in the accountability report that I turned in last fall and with our MCAS presentation, so not a lot of new information really, but they do put these out for the whole district and each individual school in your district. And they do ask us to share those with families and post them on our website. So I just wanted to share that information with you as well. And my report basically just kind of breaks down the different categories that they talk about in that district report card. Do you have any questions about the district report card?
Where's that on our website now?
It's posted right on there, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that.
I know, I got the link, I'm sorry, just,
Yeah.
if I were not me on the committee, where would I go to access that information? On the website.
I know Cindy sent the BES one out in her
Yep.
blog, I thought Todd did too.
By law, we have.
They've all been.
Yeah, they were in the blogs,
Right.
but yeah,
But they're also supposed to be posted on the website, and so they've been put on there.
They'll be on there tomorrow.
Thanks, Joe.
I was curious.
That's why we have these meetings. Thank you.
Anybody have any other questions? So Sally,
Sure.
I spent a little bit of time looking through them, but can you maybe point out maybe the most, I want to call it the most challenging score that we received, but the worst score that we received and what might we be doing about it?
Well, if you look at all the scores, there's like an overall rating at the very end. And so I would say BES had a score that was lower than the other two schools, so that's something that, we want to take a look at.
In what areas?
It was an overall score, but it had to do a lot with the MCAT, which we talked about before.
So I've been working with Cindy, right? And so we've been working hard to see that growth taking place. Our hope is that this next round of MCAS that we'll be taking this spring, actually next month, right? We're going to see there's some things to focus on, and I'm not speaking for Cindy, but with Matt, and we're working with John as well too, who's not only our curriculum director, but we're actually doing learning walks, so we're seeing what education is going to look like both in Berlin and Williston. And we're actually working with Sue O'Neill, who is a former superintendent as well too. So we have an outside perspective who's working across the country right now, helping us seeing like, what do we need for best practices to make sure we're moving that needle. That there are some things we're working on and we know it's a concern, and we acknowledge that as well too. So that's probably our biggest thing that we're working on right now. And Cindy, I don't want to put you on the spot, and then you want to jump in on that, but
No, I don't, because we do know we have some things to work around in that area. When we're looking at the report card and the accountability, it's not just the MCAS. I'm gonna throw this word out there, it's attendance too, which we have been working on this. A lot of things in that accountability rating. So it is a lot of MCAS, but there's other factors in there as well.
on the opposite of that, you need to know, because we focus on that, but we also got to acknowledge what's happening in Berlin is great. There are some great things there, pockets of excellence that happen there. And their report card is extremely, we're very happy about that as well too, as well as Tohoto. There are some really good things that are happening there as well too. So we're now, as an admin team, working to move up Wilson as well too, and we know we have to do that.
I think the small classroom size is at Berlin Elementary needs to be pointed out, and as a major difference between the two elementary schools.
and also,
As we go into budget season, I think that's very relevant.
and also, and I know we talk about this all the time, I feel like we've brought this up a lot. There's still stark differences between things that are being done at BES and things that are being done at BMS, between curriculum and, oh, they did this worksheet. Every third grader should be doing the exact same thing
Agreed.
district-wide.
We agree.
So I think there's a lot of work to be done there. And I know at BES, I think it's an amazing school. My two kids go there. I love it. I'm comfortable, love being there. I love Cindy. But we've got a lot of younger teachers, and that's not a bad thing. They have a lot of energy, but they, versus Berlin. So I think some of those things need to kind of be taken into account, and we need to figure out a way to bridge that gap between those two schools, and what can we do to kind of make it more equitable.
So I'd say the two, you hit them both, Megan and Jessica, it's not only small class sizes, but it's high quality teachers. And not that our teachers aren't high quality, they all are, but we have to make sure we're training them right and what they need to get better. You've heard me say this multiple times, everybody needs a coach, everyone needs some professional learning. You're gonna see from our calendar next year, it's gonna be much more specific. You're gonna first read at the calendar tonight, but you're gonna be at the next school committee, see what we're intending on doing in those professional learning days, which we're gonna share with you. We're gonna have targeted professional learning that will also help drive those schools up as well too. We really need to be looking at the curriculum and what it looks like for high quality education. What are the best practices that we should be putting in place that are gonna show our students success? Evidence-based practices.
And if I could say so, this is another reason I'm excited about the strategic
planning. I mean, that's one little section, the teaching and learning section, but that's where we can develop this plan and then have it, you know, so. And by the way, that is on the district tab, our district tab.
I'm also very interested in, like in Berlin, that they have departmentalized, right? So that's a perspective we're looking at, right? So, and Cindy and I have talked about that, where the teachers are concentrated on what they're teaching, right? Whether they're teaching math or teaching ELA and stuff. So those are all things that are part of the conversation that we're having. Sally's Smart will be able to put it all in the strategic plan. Like, this is where it's going to stay.
The other thing, and we talked about this during the budget a couple of years ago, if you look at Boylston Elementary School spending per pupil versus our district, that's on the lower end. So the spending per pupil at BES is less than the district, and it's significantly less than the state. Just something to point out.
Yep, good point.
It's less than Berlin, it's less than Tohoto, it's less than the state.
Sally, one of the stats that stuck out to me on this website was the graduation, or the high school outcomes graduation rates.
Mhm.
It only goes to 2023, but it looks like our district dropped significantly from 21, 22 to 23.
You know, but that's kind of a tricky,
What's going on with
right,
that?
because sometimes, for instance, I'll give you an example. If a student was with us and they leave, they unenroll, but then they don't finish wherever, like they don't go on to do something else, like say it was like you had a student that was going to leave to do some kind of a night program or something. That shows as a non-graduation. So sometimes there are situations that are out of our control.
Is that what happened that year?
I mean, we've had situations like that in the last couple of years.
We were at 99, 98, 7 to 91.
But it
which is-
wasn't that, like, it's not that. we
It was
didn't
barely
have
above
somebody,
the
like,
state.
fail out and not graduate, you know, it wasn't that kind of situation. It was usually some of those outlier situations.
But if we're online looking at the district report card, the trend line on that looks terrible.
Yeah, but I think it has just to do with the statistics, because, I mean, it's not, like, we didn't have anybody that didn't graduate last year.
So, yeah, I think that that is a difficult statistic, because when I looked, to be honest with you, Mike, when I looked at it, I was like, how
Same
is
with me,
that?
yeah.
Because it's startling to look at.
And so I did look into it because of that, and I was told that, you know, that sometimes those other factors can cause a change in the stats or those
Okay.
numbers. But we can tell you that we haven't had any students not graduate.
I would also, part of me wonders, only because my daughter graduated in 2023, that was graduating class of 62 kids, it was significantly smaller than 2022.
Right, so the numbers are tiny.
So
right?
like when you have
it doesn't
smaller numbers, so
impact-
that's one of the things I wondered, I was gonna ask you if maybe, because just one or two students could set that lower with
Yeah.
such a small number.
That is true.
So I'm careful how I ask this question. This year, we have 100% of our students graduating from high school. Is that correct?
Correct. So 100%
That are enrolled
that are
currently.
enrolled currently, but that does not mean that there are not students that may unenroll, and then it will not be reflected as 100%. So right now,
100% of
everybody,
students that are attending Tohoto High School will be graduating in 2025.
As they did last year. in the-
If they, yes.
Are on track to do this. Good things for us to be looking at, though, and paying attention to.
All right, would you like me to talk about AP scores now? Okay, so the AP scores, I know that you had a chance to look at them last month. Some interesting stats associated with AP scores. You look at the table that I put together. I put together a table of about 27 other surrounding districts to show you what their percentages were for students that earned F3 through 5, and then, of course, you can also see what they were for 1 to 2. And we ranked 12 out of 28. Also, I looked at some information right on the AP website, and it lists every single AP exam that exists and the percentages across the country for students who earn a 3 to 5 or a 1 to 2. And I was able to see that for every one of those tests, the range is anywhere from 50 to about 80%. So our 70.8% is a pretty good percentage in that range there. Also, it's good to keep in mind that even students who score 1 to 2, there's research that shows that they always perform better on subsequent tests, and that also 90% of students who've earned 1s and 2 report that their freshman year in college was much easier to transition to than they expected because of the rigor of that AP courses alone. So it's, not something to look at as necessarily negative, So I just wanted to share that information with you.
Thank you. All good? Any questions on that?
I have one last one, but.
Yeah.
It's okay, here. I know, I wrote it down.
And I remembered you had a question.
Jog it, Jess, if it comes to you, just let us know. Ask.
And if anybody wants to see, like this AP resource that I have, or if you want to check out the website, that I can share it with you too, because it has really great stats on it about the whole country and all the tests, as I was talking about before. So.
And we're going to talk later on about approving some additional AP courses later on, correct, Lisa?
Yes,
Rich,
that's correct.
okay, great.
All right, Director of Pupil Personnel, Janelle?
Sure. I submitted a report with some highlights from the Pupil Personnel Services Office, and I'll talk about some of those here. Starting off with our special education services. I've provided the number of students that we have provided special education services to so far this year. The district total for that is 249. That includes services such as academic services, social, emotional, behavioral services, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and or speech and language services. I talked a little bit in my report about our CPAC, which is our Special Education Parent Advisory Council. As you may all know, this group meets monthly. They do a variety of meetings. Sometimes they're in person, sometimes they're remote. We did a basic rights in special education presentation this January. Actually, last night there was a wellness presentation that Sally shared with them. And in March, there will be a parent gathering. Just a little bit of update on the CPAC in our district. Our great group that does a lot to support parents in our district. I also wanted to provide an update on the district's efforts related to our 2023 special education determination rating and the work that we've done since that time. As you may recall, we presented a lot of information last April on that determination rating. And at that time, a number of the issues, actually all of the issues except for, again, MCAS, right? Coming back to the MCAS conversation, many of the issues that had come up in that special education determination rating had been resolved at that point. The outstanding issue that required our attention were MCAS scores that are captured in what's called Indicator 3. And Indicator 3 looks very specifically at the gap in proficiency for students with IEPs compared to students without IEPs. And so interestingly, when we look at this data for 2023 and 2024, even in cases where groups of students with IEPs met the state proficiency target, there was still a greater gap between them, those groups, and students without IEPs that exceeded the state target, 9 out of 16 times. So since then, administrators have worked very intensively with DESE and consultants to really understand the root cause of this gap. That includes analyzing various data points such as attendance, discipline, grades, service delivery in the IEPs, disability types, MCAS scores. Really, if you can think of the data point, we considered it and we looked at it. And we're now in the process of sharing those insights with our staff and focusing on developing an action plan to address that. And that does take time. So when I say an action plan, that means over a period of a couple of years. The plan will, one thing that we do know is that the plan will emphasize professional learning opportunities in universal design for learning, which is referred to as UDL for short. UDL aims to reduce barriers in learning by offering multiple ways for students to engage, represent, and express their knowledge. It is an evidence-based practice based in neuroscience, personalizes learning experiences, engages students, And it not only addresses students who might be struggling or having difficulties, but it also provides opportunities for students who are ready for enrichment and advanced learning opportunities in the classroom. And these kind of things take time to really carefully and thoughtfully roll out, but that is something that we are focused on in our upcoming professional development opportunities in the years ahead. Although, I don't want to be misleading, we do have staff in the district who are very skilled in UDL principles, but we really do want to prioritize that professional learning across the district, so to make sure that we're supporting all students. Funding for this type of work, we reserved an amount of money from our IDEA grant, that's our federal grant fund, and we are looking for additional grant opportunities to further support those efforts. That rating that I just provided an update for was provided in January of last year. We understand that the next rating will be available from DESE in March. So that's where we'll have a new rating. Yep, and that will be the 2024 Special Education Determination Rating.
So that's a yearly rating.
It's a yearly rating, and for for whatever reason, I think as I explained last year, although we always have this bank of federal indicators that we're always responsible for, we're always looking for 100% compliance with, DESE is often reinventing their rubric and how they calculate and determine that rating for districts. So there isn't an expectation that the report card, if you will be on the same items. It'll be a different mix. And that's probably a good segue. It doesn't follow the order of my report, or actually it might, is I had shared just some information on a feedback that we got on our meeting significant disproportionality indicators, because in previous years those indicators have been taken into account in that special education determination rating. They weren't in the last one. We don't have any status in those, and those do refer to any kind of significant disproportionality in special education, referring to identification, placement, and discipline regarding to race or ethnicity for special education students. I also, outside of special education, I provided an update on our multilingual learner community, who is certainly thriving in the Berlin-Boylston district. We have, students who have moved into the district. We have students who have graduated from receiving English language learner services. I've highlighted some of the most prominent languages that are being spoken in the homes in our community. And I have pointed out some data that in this school year, the enrollment of students requiring English language services has nearly doubled at the elementary level. And so I've provided some data around that and talked about what that looks like for our teachers when they're providing services. And they do provide services in small groups. A lot of times those small groups do represent 2 or more languages in addition to English. Our English language teachers monitor student progress for 4 years, even after they exit direct services, provide consultation to teachers, administer access testing, and oftentimes are just a natural point of contact for newcomers because they have a lot of resources for those students, and they're able to help them make connections and adapt to a new school and a new community as they're learning the language. I also provided an update on Health Office. So as we all know, there is a full-time registered nurse in each of our 3 school buildings. Very recently, the job description was revised and updated and posted on SchoolSpring so that we could support our students by directly hiring that nursing staff for each health office. We also have a 2-day per week float nurse, and that float nurse position and that's at the district level, is quite critical to supporting our busy health offices, responding to spikes in illnesses as we're seeing now, supporting field trips that require nursing support, mandatory screenings. Sometimes our nurses need to be out too. And so in addition to the daily medication needs, acute illnesses, our nursing staff monitors students with chronic needs, including those of our diabetic students. That 2-day float nurse position has been periodically vacant this school year. However, we are really excited that we are in the process of onboarding an experienced school nurse for this position. We're hoping that she can start right after the February break. So it's a good update there as well. I do want to note that in my report, as I was just looking over it, I do see an error in my data chart, so I apologize. I will resubmit that with a corrected data chart. The math just isn't adding up there. I can see that. So I will get that corrected and resubmitted. My apologies for that. My report also talks about educational stability, which is not something that I usually bring forward in my reports. It was in my annual report, so I thought an update would be appropriate here. So the Pupil Personnel Services Office also supports students that might be experiencing homelessness or are in foster care, or even have families who have active duty military members. That type of work requires a fair amount of coordination and collaboration with other agencies, state agencies, community partners. And the whole purpose of that is to provide educational stability to students who might be needing otherwise, without that sort of protection and safeguard, they might be needing to move schools a lot. We know that that can be very damaging to a student's education. So that's also work that is done in the Pupil Personnel Services Office. Last but not least is preschool. So we recently had a preschool lottery, and thank you, Lori, for coming and drawing names. I know many of the school committee members have helped us in that regard over the years. We're always very grateful. So this school year, all of the families that requested a spot were able to receive either their first or their second choice, which means we are not running a wait list at this time. I provided some updates just on how many slots are currently spoken for in our 2- and 3-day programs in both preschools. And just a note that we do tend to see those numbers increase between now and when that school year actually starts in August. There's still a fair amount of time. Professional development, we have been working on identifying specific professional development opportunities for our preschool teachers. And any planning that we're able to do in regards to universal design for learning is also consistent with the recommendations that we received from our preschool program review as well. I believe those were all of the areas that I had updated, so I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions?
I have a quick question.
Mhm.
I just wasn't sure what it meant to have no status.
I know, I had to check on that as well. I actually second guessed that as well. So it really means like no finding, no problem, no. So they use a mathematical formula to calculate whether or not there is significant disproportionality in those areas. And that labeling is a little, can be misleading, because sometimes, or in past years, maybe they didn't calculate it because we have such a small group of numbers and it wouldn't be statistically accurate. That is not the case. It's no status, meaning that there's no problem. I clarify, I confirmed that for us. Yeah, thanks. Good question.
Jess, you had something?
Yeah, so I was curious, for the indicator 3, which is the gap between the IEP and non-IEP kiddos, was there a trend, with like a statistically significant trend or anything that was identified?
So, I mean, we were able to, as a group of administrators and really doing that deep dive on the data, we were able to see sort of connections that we sort of expected to see, right? We could see that attendance, might impact performance on the MCAS, right? Kind of things that were guessed. But we did not see one really stand out piece that connected to that data, which is what brought us to that wider view. And in that collaborative work that we did with the consultants that were provided by DESE to take a look at, our practices and that are happening in classrooms, right? Most of our students receiving special education services are fully included. They are receiving their English and their math services in, classrooms. And that's what led us to say, this is an area that we want to support teachers more in their ability to differentiate and be flexible with the students that they have.
And another question. Yeah. So you said the UDL program is what you're going to use and it's evidence-based. How did you come up on that? Was it something DESI recommended? Or?
So it's actually already in the DESI teacher rubric. It's already an expectation that, that teachers and schools, are implementing various practices to that. And so those of us in the district, going back to your previous question as well, those of us that have been in the district for a while, one of the data points that we looked at is our history of professional development and our offerings, and we could see that that was something that we haven't done in a really long time, and it's worthy of revisiting it.
Yes, so thank you, Janelle, nice report.
Sorry.
So I got it, please.
So I'm looking at the L kids and the multilingual learners. So we have one L teacher for both elementary schools, and it looks like there's 45 kids. Is that sustainable, or should we be adding an L teacher in the budget? How can one teacher go across 2 schools and help 45 kids?
So that number did come up as a surprise. Like I said, that enrollment number doubled this school year, if you compare it to the previous school year. And you're right, that teacher is attending and providing services in both elementary schools every day. And the principals have done a lot of work to support that teacher in scheduling and rescheduling services for students. That is something that we're keeping a very close eye on, and that definitely warrants consideration in the budget process.
And then Tohoto, there's 28 students for somebody that teaches part-time.
So
That's just like,
yeah, the teacher just to clarify, she is in the building full-time, but her schedule is half-time English language and then half-time humanities. So she is in the building half-time, but I believe that right now she has two periods that are dedicated for English language learner and 3 periods that are dedicated for humanities. Again, something that we need to watch. Parts of that go into it is some students, it depends on their level, about how many periods a day of instruction they need, and the group sizes. The elementary students, those groups need more, just developmentally, right? They just need more sort of time and attention, and probably instruction. And they're just not as independent with maybe even the tools, and that self-learning or social learning.
And teachers are all SCI endorsed, right? So not only is the services, so we gotta be careful with that. So not only are the services being delivered by our L teachers, but also our teachers are trained in SCI endorsement. So some of our level 5s, right, and your level from 1 to 5, right? 5 is where you're working your way out and you're not receiving services at all. Is that just monitoring as well? So it's a really big formula. So the numbers alone, yes. Do we need to look at some additional support there? Yes. But it's a.
So not only this year, you said the numbers doubled, but I know in the past, it's not like it's been flat. It's been increasing every year.
Been creeping, yeah.
I mean, yeah, budget-wise, I mean, that's gonna hurt us. It's gonna be a challenge, but like.
So that is high on our ask list.
Yeah.
So, like I said, what we've got right now is level service because the numbers are high already.
Yeah.
As we break things down, our hope is to weave some asks.
So if we don't get that, Aaron, and Janelle, maybe it's more for you or Al, if we aren't able to get that, what kind of impact does that put on the classrooms at the elementary level?
I mean, certainly, it's something that we would need to look at. We would be thinking and wondering about, how much progress students can make and how well we're able to meet, the DESI recommended periods of instruction each day for each individual student. How creative can we be with the scheduling? So if we weren't, your question is, if we weren't, those are the types of questions we would have to ask ourselves and the work we would need to do.
Because I mean, Jason's still here, like you said in the beginning, they're big asks, right? So it comes along with tax increases, but we need to communicate the differences between what is behind this big ask, what is the impact if we don't have it? Is it, he talked about cuts and just saying blanket cuts, but it's not necessarily a cut, but it is additional challenges, increased challenges, where there's more challenges here, there's more attention focused here, there's less attention focused somewhere else, wherever that might be. It's up for you guys, but it is an impact one way or another, whether it's a tax impact for the budget going up or whether it's an impact in the classroom.
It is some things we have no choices on, right? When a student has an IEP or needs to have health services, like, that's not discretionary, right? We can't say we're gonna provide this or not provide that, right? So, but to the point we talked about earlier, those are all budget things, insurance, and Aaron will go through all this stuff. Those are some things that are out of our control. When we look at our budget just to sustain the day-to-day operations, never mind heat, electricity, all those things that are going up, then we're asking for things that don't come our way, right? To Janelle's point, to your point, Mike, one of the other concerns, and Janelle and I meet weekly, right? So not only are we working on what's happening in Wilson, but that gap between special education kids with IEPs and those kids, that's something we should all be concerned about. What are we gonna do about that to decrease that? UDL is absolutely one thing, but we gotta make sure we're sustaining these things, right? Financially sustain. We do UDL for a while, and then we let it go away. We gotta look at how we're gonna maintain this stuff, so we can see some growth taking place. But those are things we're worried about. Just a couple of clarifying questions to what Janelle report. So the preschools this year are going to remain at Tohoto, right? Because we're continuing that program taking place where kids have that opportunity to have that internship, for lack of better wording, at the preschool, and the other one will remain in Berlin as well too. I know there was talk of moving one of them to Boston, but that is not happening for next year as well too. In staffing, to the nursing piece, we worked on job descriptions, we got that out, we got some actually high quality interested people that are there, so we're looking to move away from those contracted individuals that are working in the special education world and the nursing world, and getting more internal candidates as well too. So that's all the work that's been happening in the last couple of months. Just wanted to add that piece.
Thank
you.
I have one other question, sorry. Looking at the nurse visits for average visits.
Yes, there's a data error there. That's where that data
Oh.
error
Yeah.
is. I can see that math isn't adding up. So let me correct that, and I could submit that chart again. My apologies for that error.
No, that's okay. I was just gonna
Doesn't make
say,
sense.
it's just funny how there's so many more sick kids in Boylston than Berlin, and moving into the attendance thing. I'm just wondering, have we, as a district, maybe tried to pinpoint reasons for that? Are there different practices at Berlin Memorial that are not happening at Boylston Elementary? Maybe cleaning or things that happen in the cafeteria? I don't know. What?
So it's proportional, like
Oh,
there's
Berlin
more,
is smaller.
it would be interesting to see if the
Potentially there's
proportions.
more. It was not proportional in 2022, 2023. Well, if you minus out the scheduled daily visits, then it's, Berlin barely has any nurse visits. And Boylston has, like, so if you minus it out, Boylston is like 5-1, and we're not 5-1 in size. So I just did the math, and it's not proportional at all. It's not proportional.
Sure, and to clarify, and I believe
Minus
it
out the scheduled daily visits, I'm guessing those are kids that need to go for medication.
Yes.
You're not gonna do anything about that, that's something that is what it
Yes.
is. My point is, if you guess that, the non-scheduled visits are sick kids, in Berlin this year, if you minus out 0.33 to almost 5 is the difference. I mean, that's
It's
insane.
hard to believe though.
I think-
Like
I thought- I
0.32,
assumed
that
that
was
was
like big that you're talking about.
No,
Yeah,
that
right?
means, no, that means that
No.
some days, some kids don't go to the nurse in Berlin. There's days where no sick kids go to the nurse.
She does.
So the, and so just to clarify, so right, the 23-24 data I had shared last year around the time that we were having a budget conversation, there was a question, and I had just submitted that as a read-only report. So it's the 24-25 data that I want to double check on because, right, the daily visits and the scheduled daily visits, there's something about that that's not working correctly. But basically, obviously the way that I've calculated that, it might be important is that our software is able to tell us, exactly how many visits have been seen to date.
Yeah.
All right, and then if we count the number of school days
Yeah.
and do that's how we're arriving at that number.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. But even so, if you subtract out, subtract that, there's more in Boylston than Berlin. And I'm going off this because we had a lot of parental complaints about sickness at Boylston Elementary over, or Berlin. I don't know, Berlin had an issue, I know Boylston.
But also, if it's not documented, it didn't happen in the nursing world, right? So
It might be a
how
matter of
much
like one
time?
nurse checks everyone in, the other one says, go drink some water, come back, and we'll see.
And they should be consistent in that. The expectation is that
Should be.
there's consistency, but any of these visits could range anywhere from, and not to minimize it, but I mean, one of these visits could be resulting in a quick wash and a Band-Aid, right? Something very superficial and the student's in and out of the health office, to something that a student is physically ill and needs a lot of support and ultimately needs to go home. Right, so these numbers don't necessarily tell us that part of the story.
I
But-
just find it very hard to believe that one student goes every 3 days in Berlin outside of the scheduled visits at the end of the day. I don't know.
Well, let's wait and make sure we have the
Yeah.
accurate data for next time,
Yes.
Janelle, and we can bring that the
Yeah.
next week.
Absolutely. Again, that entire row for 24-25, the 12.33, the 18.93, and the 21.55, that's the part of the data that I'm saying, I believe there's an error there, and I want to resubmit that to you.
But to your point, Megan, so one of the things that's on the request, right, again, beyond that level budget is our facilities director has come to us and said, we need additional custodial help, right? At
Yeah.
both Berlin and Wilson, right? They're looking, especially during the winter, right? Especially the update, and especially now with everyone being sick, right? So all of that is something we're putting on the budget. But again, it's all about that big budget piece that we weren't really planning on, but it's a necessity.
I just have one comment, totally unrelated. I noticed, you mentioned the UDL, and I see that there's differentiation. I think, just my opinion, differentiation would be a nice thing for professional development, because we talk a lot about the kids at the top, the enrichment kids, and differentiation helps them as much as it helps anybody that's.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That enrichment and extension, absolutely.
That's what universal design for learning is all about. It's not just focusing, and I know it's coming from Janelle with the pupil personnel and special education, but it's also for, we don't use that terminology, but gifted and talented, the kids that can be reaching beyond, right? That's what we should be doing.
Even those kids in the middle, they can start to soar, you know what I mean? Once they-
And not all of us learn from standing and delivering, not all of us. So kids will have options on the way they can learn. But we gotta teach our teachers on how to deliver that, right? We gotta teach them that way. And it's a whole different way of teaching, by the way. Yep. Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen, how you doing?
All right, I'm great. So all that is a bit of a segue into budget. I'd like to start, you have a memo for me. I know that didn't make the agenda. This is a memo on setting up district P cards. These are basically credit cards that have very specific controls on them. I think, some of the school committee members have been in conversations about concerns about staff using their credit cards for things. We've had a number of situations where the only way to pay something was with a credit card. What we're looking for is authorization from the school committee to pursue a very limited number of, again, what's called P cards. I've described them in here. They are very controllable credit cards of a sort. You could set up cards that are exclusive to only buy gas with. They all come pre-built with specific exclusions, right? You can't buy tobacco and alcohol and things like that. So they're designed for governmental agencies, municipal organizations like ours. So we would like to pursue that if that's something the school committee would be maybe willing to vote on. Again, I realize it's not on the agenda. I apologize, I didn't realize it wasn't on the agenda.
And gas is for just that one example we gave, for the snow blowers, for the lawn mowers and stuff, right? It's not just for the public knowledge, it's not for cars or anything like that, okay? Just so people are aware.
I just wanted to point out that at the FinCom meeting, it came up that like the transfer station, they had to get a credit, they had to town up their first credit card, right? Because they got Starlink and the only way to get internet service there and the only way to pay for it was with a credit card. So I think that's the way of, I think that's.
Even today, we had to purchase some, I had to get my credit card because we needed to get that, no reimbursement, but it's another step we have to go through, right?
And I commented on the ethics piece. There's, certainly someone spending $20 here and there on a few things, but as we start putting large things on credit cards, larger things that we have to, we recently had something I had to use my credit card for $2,500, right? Not a big deal, but you then also get into the fact that Aaron Osborne gets Costco points for that, right? What's the ethics? If Aaron Osborne keeps using his own credit card, right, and keeps racking up Costco points, what's my disincentive from just continuing to earn Costco points? Or whatever, frequent flyer miles. So you do, once you start getting into aggregated numbers that are a little bit larger, I would absolutely support people doing what they need to do to make sure things happen for the district. But I don't think we should put someone in a situation where someone could be accused of, using the district to rack up hospital points or frequent flyer miles or things like that.
Never mind, Mrs. Osborne called me, they asked what was the $2,500.
Exactly, I did get permission from my wife to use the card. So, I think this would take care of a lot of that. We're starting, with just the superintendent, myself, and the director of facilities. We're the three who are most likely to need it. We could use that card on behalf of others if there were situations like those.
And Aaron, just to explain that, we'll go through the warrants, right? You'll see that, Megan, you'll see the cost items for each one of those items that go on that credit.
Yeah, I
card.
see those.
Anything on a credit card would be on, and it'd be the same thing for that. You'd see every single item. Everything would be transparent.
So can we vote on that or no?
Yeah, let's add it to the business items to vote after.
Alrighty, so I will handle things in year order. So last month I gave you a very long, very detailed financial report up through December 31st. I have since created a slimmer, leaner, meaner summary report for the school committee. Happy, if people have questions now, if people have questions later, you can go back if you're looking at a specific item, you can look at all the detail from the prior report to see what makes that up. What I would propose is that we would do something like this, at least for now, on a quarterly basis. This summary report isn't automatic. It's something that I would manually put together based on the template. This is a template I've used. Al recalls it from Hampton Wilbraham. A little different. But I know you all are everyone's very interested in the various cost centers. So, Berlin Elementary, Berlin Memorial, Boylston Elementary, Tohoto. So I've split those out accordingly. In prior districts, I haven't always split the schools out individually. But this is a goal to maybe go, maybe not 30,000 foot view, maybe 20,000 foot view for the school committee. Is this maybe something the committee would be looking for? As opposed to I think it was about 40 pages last time.
Yeah, Aaron, so what I asked for basically was based on last spring, when we, again, how Jason described it, the cluster show that was last spring, nobody knowing where money was being spent, people accusing the schools of being gold-plated and all sorts of things. We need something to show where the money's being spent, which it's a public budget, anybody can go and look at it. But if we could be a little more proactive in putting out a report, it doesn't need to be the 40 pages long, but something enough to say, okay, this is what we're asking for next year, this is what we've already spent this year.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. This is,
and that's,
minimally what I would think.
Yeah, to go right up to put on the website, anybody can go, I know the budget presentation is out there right now. I saw it this afternoon.
Okay.
So.
Right on the district website.
Yep, right on the homepage, yep. Just, depending on your screen resolution, just scroll down a little bit, you'll see it. But, if it's something to go along with that, and maybe keep it updated every month until the town meetings.
Yep, we'll keep doing that. We'll pause the gold plating.
Yeah, no more gold plates.
And
I like
we'll work on
ceramic.
this. Honestly, for the public, for the folks here, who make a comment, if you have questions, things like that, reach out to me. I'm accessible. I respond. Email is usually the best way to get me. It creates a task list for me. I can cycle through things pretty easily.
We're not new to this, but we're new to working in Berlin Boylston. So we're just looking to see what you guys are looking for, right? We understand and heard about the past. We're looking to move forward and see exactly how you want to present. We worked in multiple different communities. They all wanted it a little bit different. So we're just trying to make sure that this is the way you want to present it. So that's clear for everyone.
Yes. Is there a link on each of the websites to our website or to the budget website?
I don't know.
I mean, I think that might be beneficial if we're looking for information.
We could talk to the towns. The towns control their own websites.
A link on each of the town's websites to link to our Probably finance page would be the one everyone's looking for.
I haven't looked, most
I think it's
towns
probably
have
easy
a
if Jennifer just goes to
school
bbrsd.org, it's right on the homepage.
We don't control the link for
Yeah.
that, that would have to be the towns, right? That would have to be.
Yeah, towns would have to.
Yeah.
And I would
We'll have to
hope,
work with the towns to do that, and they might say, no, we don't want to do it.
Yeah, we can arrange that.
I think there's a link though on there, like a school link.
Most towns have hyperlinks to their schools. Yeah, I
Probably
couldn't
have
tell
a
you what
national
Berlin was.
budget, town budget link currently, that they just recently launched.
Aaron, can I ask a question about this report, the
Mhm.
budget summary report?
Sure.
That's what we're talking about now, right?
Yeah.
I think it's really good, I like it. The only thing is, I think it gives like the false notion
Mhm.
that, so like, let's say there's a balance.
Mhm.
And I think there's a balance because we still don't have like a forecast column. So like, for example, if I'm looking at like
Well-
principal's office.
Mhm.
um,
So,
Like, just because there's a balance of $73,722 in Berlin for the principal's office, that doesn't mean we're gonna have an excess in that line item at the end of the year for that amount.
no,
Right,
it's February, we spend over the course of the whole year.
Yeah, this is only
There are also a
expenditures
lot
through
of
December.
salaries that our system does not automatically encumber salaries. I think I shared last time.
yes,
So
you
there's
share
some
that with me,
encumbrances that-
so I think that needs
There
to
are
be.
a couple items, I mean, I can add some comments to what. at
Certain
the
things
moment we're
aren't
sorting
encumbered.
through.
Yes,
Some things
so-
that aren't encumbered. There's also some things that aren't taken into account.
Yep.
As well, and that can always be a little bit challenging with this. We are working on figuring out how to properly encumber salaries within our existing system. To my knowledge, it either hasn't been done or it's been some sort of estimate at best. So, what we'd like to do is figure out, properly encumber that properly. So again, I agree. I think I shared also that someone did at the very beginning of the year encumber a lot of salaries. So you look at some of those items, there are encumbrances.
I saw there are some, but
Yeah,
not all, and
there's
so it
about-
looks like,
I want to say
oh,
there's about $2 million of encumbered
Yeah.
salaries in there that someone put in, I want to say in August, September, prior to my arrival. Honestly, at least it encumbers something and there's something in there. So I'm hesitant to take it down until we have something better. But, looking at this, looking at trending and looking at what some of our other resources are, I think we're okay. We're also working on sorting through, you'll see some notes in there, some of the withholdings. So we withhold health insurance from people. The employee share of health insurance, so 25% of my health insurance I pay for is through. We just need to work on how to apply that properly to our financial system. So those are sitting right now in a liability account. It's a decent size. It's just sorting through everything that sort of wasn't done from the start of this year and building it into going back to July 1st and continuing the rest of the year.
Hey, Aaron, this is completely random, but it's budget related. Your report breaks down by school, by cost center. I'm sure you're going to go in the budget presentation here, but another point of confusion, and I know you brought this up before, is the, what do you call it, the allocation from the towns to Tohoto, the way that breaks down. Since we're putting some things on the website to be crystal clear about the budget, maybe a brief, like 1 sentence or 2 sentence. Berlin is roughly X percent, Boylston is roughly Y percent, based on whatever it is. And I know it changes every year. There's a 5-year moving average involved and all sorts of different stuff based on enrollment. But just basically, if at Tohoto, because it's combined, but different percentages come from the 2 towns, what does it mean if one town number changes to the other town? Something.
Correct.
Since you've been studying that for the last 4 or 5 months, maybe a brief summarized explanation right along, maybe even in the next budget presentation, like the first page or something.
I can do that. That's not a problem. Right now, and I pretty much finalized the splits. We're at about 65.486% Boylston, 34.514% Berlin. And that is the Tohoto costs are split by that, as well as the debt. It's kind of an interesting, there's nothing in the regional agreement talking about how debt is apportioned. Going back, it's always apportioned according to this. I would typically think that when you do a 2.5 override, you're kind of telling all of your constituents that there's going to be a fixed amount for X years, and we have something that's kind of a moving figure. So, but that's kind of baked into our regional agreements. It's kind of hard to unring that at the moment. Right? Most districts would have debt be as apportioned at the time it was incurred. So when at the time you incurred that debt on Tohoto, for example, you would maintain those splits. But again, it's all governed by the region.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. So good to move on?
Yes.
Okay.
Move the microphone closer to you.
Oh,
You have
sure.
Very soft.
Okay. I can be a lot less soft-spoken, but I'll do my best. I'll do my best. So we are into version 2.0. We have presented at both Berlin and Boylston in December. Al and I will be presenting at Berlin tomorrow night for those of you interested in wanting to join us, whether at home or in person. I'm assuming we'll be at the town offices. So if we go to the next slide, this is where we're standing now. I think you'll recall we were closer to 7% the last time through. This includes, I have gone through another round with all of the principals. They've shared with me a few items we were able to take out. You'll see some of those numbers as we talk about the drivers. Some of the salary items, will come down a little bit. Some of it stemmed from my, not entirely knowing what was intended to be part of the budget and what wasn't in past years. But I know Lisa and I came up with a couple items that we were able to pull right out. Additionally, state figures have come in for the governor's budget. The governor is proposing $75 per pupil as a minimum aid number. So that helps. So our chapter 70 is going up a decent bit. So we're in good shape there. We also have a fair bit of circuit break. I'll talk a little bit about how much we're proposing to put in for offsets as we go through. If we go to the next slide, this is version 1 versus version 2. You'll see at the end in version 1, we were at over 26 million, almost 26.5. So now we're down to 25,728,000 for that 4.22%. Factored in that are a combination of a few items we were able to cut out, as well as some offsets. And we'll see those offsets in a few minutes. So these are the offsets. So I am proposing that we look to use $750,000 of school choice. I know that is higher than what we typically take in. It's also higher than we've taken in the past. You'll notice that E&D is not on this list. We are still in the process of trying to get E&D certified. I am very confident that E&D will certify at a value that is at least equivalent to the difference between what we've traditionally spent in choice and what we take in, and what we may have. We very likely will have more than that. It's we didn't really use E&D last year. The final budget last year from the House and Senate last year came in with $104 per student of Chapter 70 aid. There are also a couple other items that came in a little better. So I'm pretty confident that that money will be there. So I'm just proposing for the moment, we use this as a placeholder. There is adequate choice to cover this in the school choice account.
The last few weeks, you still feel confident
In terms of school choice?
In terms of the funds?
Yes, I feel confident. Circuit breaker reimbursement, this is in line with what we received this past year. I've talked to Janelle a couple times. We've been pretty consistent with where we were last year, so this should be. We do have some carryover circuit breaker, so I'm going to endeavor to also carry over a little bit of excess circuit breaker to help the budget, but this is just being where we are now. We have traditionally used some of the IDEA grant funds to pay for some paraprofessionals as well as some out of district placements. So all in, we're looking at almost $2 million in total offsets to support the budget. So that's helpful as we go through. Some of those were factored into version 1. Some of them are just being increased right now. So when we get into Berlin Memorial, you'll see, that salary increase comes down a little bit. We moved 2 of the agency pairs to Tohoto. You also see in Berlin, just because of anticipated student moves, and as we're getting a little more refined on student needs. We moved 2 from Berlin to Tohoto and 1 from Boylston. That had a pretty solid impact on both budgets. Health insurance, a lot of those things, I have an email into our representative for health insurance. I'd like to get some closure on our health insurance budget. I think there's also a conversation to be had about where we think we might be able to be on the agency para situation, right? So I have 9 agency paras built into the budget right now. I think the hope is, we can have some conversations and maybe we can set a goal of cutting that number down by next year. So it's important to recognize it does not appear that those were budgeted in the past. So even though we had them, we weren't budgeting them. We were budgeting them as regular paras. So again, version 2.0 is a lot friendlier on all accounts here. If we go to the next slide. We get into the assessment, version 1 versus version 2. We're down almost $300,000 in total assessment to the town of Berlin for Berlin Memorial. I won't go into all the details, but I factored in Chapter 70 and Chapter 71 aid. You'll see there's a little bit of up and down. It looks like our transportation reimbursement went down a little bit relative to what was budgeted last year. I don't know why, but the number that was budgeted was higher than the number that the state gave us last year, but it was offset by some other things. So sometimes things end up being a wash in terms of state figures. We're relying right now on governor's budget. There are going to be 3 or 4 more iterations of the budget that may change pretty drastically at the state level. But we have to just draw a line in the sand somewhere, right? I think this is a pretty responsible and reasonable place to be right now. If we go to the next slide, we will get into Boylston Elementary. I know one of the things we talked about a few moments ago was cleaning at Boylston Elementary. One of the things to remember is their custodial staffing between Berlin and Boylston is very similar in total staffing, but Boylston has significantly more students. So that's a challenge. We're definitely including thoughts about custodial staffing, grounds staffing. We've had conversations about grounds work that needs to be done at Tohoto, for example, as a potential ask, right? So when we start looking at MLL, we start looking at, I think we have some special education resources possibly in our potential asks. This is also, custodial is also among our asks. And we're going to see where things play out and hopefully be able to try to create some combination of those things to help out. So if we go to the next slide, we get to
Aaron, can I interrupt? Sorry. Your potential asks. So just to clarify, what you're covering right now is nothing new that doesn't exist today.
Yes, this is level service.
So this is level service.
Yes.
Basically, operate the schools today at next year's numbers based on expected inflation and actual contracts.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Just want to make sure.
With some necessary changes,
I know you said
removing of
there's
staff.
no- There's no gold plates in here, but there's not even silver, ceramic, or even paper, right?
No,
Yeah, so it's all just exactly what's there
Yeah.
today.
it's all pewter.
Pewters, okay.
Okay.
Any red line? or-
You keep going down this path of metals, random metals, just choose.
Nothing new, this is absolute level. service.
Right, correct. So again, I think we've done some of the work necessary to bring sort of that assessment down a bit. So we've gone down again, almost 300,000. Like I said, there were some moves to Tohoto, but I think Tohoto is where we had some potential savings as well. So, that became a bit of a wash in working with Lisa in some of those areas. So moving to our next slide. Tohoto, these are again some of the drivers with those new items. Again, the increase in salaries now includes the agency paras from BMS and BES. There's the existing move-ups, move-ins. We've applied some circuit breaker. So again, I think last time I hadn't applied as much circuit breakers. I was looking to get a bead on where we were and how much we have. So there's a little bit more circuit breaker applied across the board to support some of those more costly placements. So if we go to the next slide, we get into the sort of first part of the Tohoto assessment. So that whole process is, figuring out that sort of total budget, taking out the Chapter 70, 71, charter reimbursement, and then coming to a total assessment figure. Again, you'll see that total assessment figure comes out about 300,000, a little less than 300,000 less than our prior version 1. So all in, we're continuing on a downward trend. If we go to the next slide, we get into a couple calculations regarding minimum local contribution and shares. We get to the above. And then we look at Berlin's above at 2,077,000, a decrease of about 200,000 since last time, and Boylston above minimum, about a couple 100,000 below as well. So both are in pretty good shape relative to last round of the budget. Next slide. And we get into total Berlin operating assessments. So we have the Berlin Memorial Assessment, we have the Tohoto minimum local contribution, Tohonto's above minimum local contribution, and a total assessment that comes down by about $600,000, a little less, 550,000 from our last iteration 1. And again, I want to remind everyone, we're continuing to work on this. There are factors that are continuing to come in. I think most of them should be downward. The only caveat I would give is we still have that April 1st number that's always looming. I always worry about that. I had a bad experience once with it, and it's tempered me. So I'm always worried about that potential for move-ins. So we'll see what happens. Moving on to Boylston's operating assessments for 2026. Total operating assessments, again, down about 300,000 from version 1. Elementary, and then the 2 Tohoto pieces factoring into the total operating assessment. Getting to the next slide, I think we get into debt. So this is that debt share. This is factored at that 65.486 and 34.514%. It's traditionally been assessed as part of the capital assessment. I've seen it done a couple different ways in our prior district as part of operating. It's just a payment. Wherever it's paid through is kind of arbitrary to me. So you have total shares, Berlin at 533,470, Boylston at 1,012,180. Those are pretty much final numbers. So I've finalized the shares. That is part of our debt schedule, so that is not going to change. That's a fixed cost. So next slide. Capital assessments. I didn't go through all of our capital requests, remain the same from our last. I didn't include slides, just reviewing those again because I thought it was a little redundant. So total debt assessments including the elementary capitals for each town, and then Tohonto's capital requests and 26 capital assessments. I think it's really important to know that much of this is a conversation with the towns. I think when we went and we've presented actually budget and capital to the town of Berlin. We're going on round 2 of budget to the town of Berlin. Some of this is a conversation. We'd love to hear from the towns about where they're sitting. I know we had, when we had our conversation with Boylston, there was kind of a number thrown out for where Boylston thought they could be. I'd love to get something, I think it would be helpful to get sort of maybe some official communications about, where this sits, right? So we're coming into round 2 with the towns. We've said, here's where our numbers are. I think it'd be really nice to maybe get some feedback from the towns as to where these numbers sit with them so that we can, start that active conversation. I think we can recognize that it's probably unlikely that Berlin's going to want to put down $1.4 million of capital this year. But there's definitely a conversation to be had about which items, are priorities. I know when we presented capital and we presented our budget, we were pretty clear that we have a couple priority items, one of those being elevator controls. So, if the elevator goes, that's going to shut down some services in the building and run into some big challenges around ADA compliance and things like that. Potential fines from the state and things like that. So that would be a priority, but a lot of the others can be part of an active conversation. So moving on to our next slide, which I think is thank you. Questions, thoughts? Again, this was a pretty brief summary. I'm happy to, if people want to come in and sit down and pour over items, we can go through every single item in the budget. There's thousands of individual line items to go through. I want to provide something that's both transparent, but also, isn't going through thousands of individual line items in the school committee meeting. If anybody would like to have that conversation, our auditor is going to be in tomorrow and Thursday, so those are probably not opportune days to do that. But I'm happy to work with people and have some of those conversations. It might, might give me some space from the audit, but whatever.
Anybody?
I happened to notice after our last meeting that a teacher went up to you and thanked you for your budget presentation. And I had said the same thing to you and several of others of us as well. But the fact that a teacher who's been here for a long time, like a veteran teacher, thank you, really speaks volumes about what you've done here. And you put in so much time and you've sifted through a lot and this is so easy to digest and understand. And I appreciate that. So I want to say thank you.
I will say that meant a lot to me as well. I appreciate positive feedback. I also appreciate critical feedback. This is about a back and forth. I know there have been challenges between the school and town. I really think anything I can do to mend some of those in my capacity and whatever fights or debates or whatever were going on before, those aren't mine. I don't want to have those. I want to have really good conversations about what's right for kids. I know that more than half of your town budgets go to pay for the schools. And that's, it's an honor to be able to do my job in that capacity, knowing that so many families and so many communities and so many taxpayers kind of vest that authority in us. And we want to do our best to sort of meet their expectations. So really anything I can do, please ask questions, be critical. If you think something can be cut, that's fantastic. Let's cut it. You can write me a personal guarantee and you can write me a personal check if you're wrong. And if I'm wrong, well, we can go from there, whatever. But I enjoy debate. I enjoy conversations. And I think if we can't laugh a little bit about it too.
This is the way we will present it, right? We told you that when we first brought myself and Aaron on board, right? This is how we've done it. We've done it in previous districts and it seems to have been successful. And that's what we're planning on doing here in Berlin, Wilson as well.
When
My only question is the timeline. So you said you want to get some feedback from the towns. So today is Tuesday.
Yep.
You have a big vacation coming up, and I want to
Yep.
honor that because you have busted your butt for this district.
Thank you.
Since the day you started, even before you started. So we've got a couple days, and then you get back,
Yeah.
what, hours before the presentation we're supposed to give on the 25th. So are we gonna actually have time to get feedback from the towns? And, you know, does it make sense to move that vote a week or 2 weeks? Or, you know, because I know Boylston did say, hey, we have a number. I don't know if they have it yet. So what if they say it's higher than what we have in here? And we can actually, we know we have an ask list. We've talked about that, right? What if there's other things we can get for that elementary school, but we've already voted on this? I mean, I know we can vote again, but it's almost like, well, what's the point?
Well, we've been talking about this 25th date.
Yep.
You got any progress on
Yep,
that?
talked to Kristen, actually I have a text from her, and I guess she spoke with Peg, I know who's in the audience as well too. But she's looking, actually, if we could delay as far as the week of March 10th. I pushed it a week later to the week of March 3rd, but I guess someone on their FinCom or someone on their select board is on vacation that week, I won't be available. So the latest text I received from Kristen was the week of March 10th would work fine for in the town of Brooklyn.
Okay. All right, well, that's.
And we have a meeting the 11th, so that's perfect. It's already on the calendar.
Yeah.
And that gives us time to actually, like, last year, the budget subcommittee, we invited like FinCom people in, and, you know, or go, you know, at night, and I know you guys said you're going to Berlin tomorrow, the FinCom meeting, so I mean, I don't know. All right, perfect, so Beth's gonna be there, so that's great, and then we can like convene as the budget subcommittee, and then I'll talk to the Boylston folks and see, you know, usually they have a different schedule, they are happy to, you know, they don't mind coming in, meeting in central office, so we can figure that out, and we can.
Right on.
And that way we're going into this school committee vote, kind of knowing where we stand. I like that point about where we stand with the town, so hopefully we're all on the same page going into this vote. You know, then the other thing it would be nice to have, and I know again, this takes time, is like a list of those asks, you know, with priorities, like this is number one priority.
We can put that together easy.
Yeah. I think that would be helpful for the school committee members.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you mentioned the potential ask there, and it's, John's not here.
No, John's on sick, sorry.
He'd be able to answer this, but I don't know if any of you guys can. I know last year, we did end up cutting some things from BMS and the Berlin side of Tohoto, whatever that ended up being. And this being a level service budget, those things aren't coming back. It would be nice to know how we're getting along. I know there's a kindergarten class that's pretty big in Berlin.
We don't have a reading coach.
It'd be nice to know how those things are going along this year, what impact it was, and could we have them back? Because
Okay.
I know I've heard some challenges. And then the potential asks that you mentioned, and we just talked about, the special ed, the ELL. When do you plan on showing those?
We can have those in a matter of a week or two.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I'd like to reconvene with the principals and department heads to make sure that, you know, the asks I have and we can rank priority them, things like that. I mean, I think that's important.
Yeah.
Would it make sense to review that on Tuesday, or are we scrapping the plan?
Well, we won't make a decision on that yet, but I think regardless of what happens, the 25th will probably happen, whether it's live or a quick Zoom or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can have that together for you.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, just so we have a full picture.
And then the 11th will be like the public forum where the public comes and asks, and then we vote.
Yeah, we'll sort out a final date there with everybody, make sure, we gotta make sure everybody's on board. So.
Because I think we have to put that in.
Yeah, we need to know what date that is so we can get in the paper.
Yeah, it's a budget hearing, so it's not just a regular meeting.
It has to go into the newspaper.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, that's good.
It's 7 days ahead.
It takes like 4 to get it.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Dealt with that, yeah.
We're doing the items as well?
We'll get it there.
That's the look.
I don't think it takes a week or something.
Yeah, it takes longer.
Mhm.
Yeah, you have to submit to by Monday for the Friday.
Yeah, if you miss Monday, then you're going 2 weeks.
Mhm.
But
Not for next week. I mean,
No, if they get everything straightened out, they could submit it. Before, well, yeah.
Yeah.
And the Telegram, I mean, it might be worth if you look at both. Telegram is like a couple days, but it's like online, and once you submit it, you can't change it, so it's like, you better be solid on the dates.
And just for, back to Mike's point, every principal in this room, and many assistant principals, directors can tell you what their asks are and what their needs are for next year. Now it'll be our job to sit as a group and say, what do we as a district want, not what's just best for one school or one department. What do we want as a district that we think will move us in the direction we want to be, right? So that's the part that we will be working together. And again, hammering it home, that would all be on point, right? So this way we won't be saying every year after year. Same thing with capital improvements, like this is what we want, and we just keep revisiting that same and not adding or changing every year.
There was a 3-year plan, every year we put things on.
Yeah.
Well, that's what was happening, is we just kept moving things off, and then it was like, we're in a year, well, we've got like 30 things that we moved off for 5 years, so.
And that's why this strategic plan will have a timeline, right? And people will be held accountable. So it's not just people sitting in this room, but the community is vested into it, as well as our students and our parents are saying, what are we doing with this? Here's the timeline.
Yeah. Okay, that was great, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? What? Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
Okay, Jess, do you have any update for the Student Success and Technology Subcommittee?
No, I was waiting for the Attorney General for discussions.
Okay. Megan, we just talked about budget, unless you have something
No update.
specific. Superintendent search, Lori, I think we covered that, right? And we did not meet on policy except for the changing the names to positions in the upper. Okay. So that brings us to business items. There's two things that I don't have in front of me here, so I want to do them first so we don't forget it. Could I have a motion to approve the request for the P card setup as detailed in Aaron's memo?
So moved.
Lori, Jess, would anyone like to discuss that?
I mean, there will be oversights, the warrants are reviewed, but how often are the warrants submitted, I guess, I don't know.
And these cards will be set up with their own account code on those ones? Like-
Yeah. So anything I charge, you'd very clear. It's just like any other credit card. You get a statement, you get, I would need to submit receipts, the whole 9 yards. Nothing changes. The P cards just have a better control system.
And limited.
And
Yeah.
they have a treasurer that actually pays the bills and an accountant that's actually preparing the warrants and doing the entry and like, so if there was anything, and then I review it and then, technically anyone on the school can look at it. So there's lots of eyes looking at it.
Even the last thing that came to me today was an email from our treasurer, Cynthia Henderson, saying that this is on the agenda.
Yeah,
Sure.
she looks at everything. Yep.
She's doing a phenomenal job, I think.
Yes, she
Any
is.
last questions? All right, all those in favor of that motion? Anyone against? Okay, the motion passes. Could I have a motion, please, to, I don't have this written, how should we say this? Could I have a motion, please, to officially start an interim superintendent search?
So moved.
Lisa?
Second.
Lori? Anyone like to discuss this? Just to reiterate, we met yesterday with the MASC rep. She suggested this might be a smoother way, a friendlier way, a way to give us a better opportunity to find some more qualified candidates. Thank you, Jess. So.
And a more realistic timeline.
And more realistic timeline. It allows Al to sort of finish cleaning up the mess left to him and get everything else in line for someone to come over and sort of be able to hit the ground running without having to do all the work that Al's been doing. You sort of just take a well-oiled machine and run with it. So that's the motion to start the interim search. Would anyone like to say anything?
Yeah, so I think it's of note that West Boylston is looking for a superintendent at this moment now.
Their superintendent's been there for 30 years, which was a very concerning when I read that item. Also, I reached out to Tracy after the meeting because I was thinking more, and if we don't find a qualified candidate or one that or lack of candidates applying, we would then in May have to do an interim search. So I just asked like what that would look like if that happened.
Be even more rushed and condensed.
So it might have ended up like that anyway.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, like if we don't seem appealing as a district and we don't get applicants or we get applicants who might not desire, that where we end up then.
And just for anybody watching, this will be a public search. Resumes will be submitted, applications will be submitted, interviews will be done in public. I'll record it, anybody can watch, so. Anybody else?
And so then the more permanent superintendent search would start the process of different committees and.
I mean, the process would even start now for that, but officially kick off in September, yeah. And we there's a lot of work for us to do, to put together job descriptions and district information, things like that, so.
And it gives an opportunity for staff input, and also parent input.
And that will be, if I can say, my job as the interim, if that's for next year, is to work with that new superintendent, the permanent one, to have them come to these budget meetings, to have them come to town meetings, to have them go to do those introductions. So there is a gradual release, right, and there is some transition that's taking place. You know, I got to tell you, one of the toughest lifts of this job this year is that I didn't have any transition. I'd done this job before, but not having transition, right, to not even just like where stuff are. I'm embarrassed sometimes to ask the questions I say to the people in this room, like, just help me understand this, or, you know, I don't know this right now. Not that I don't know the role, but I don't know the logistics of this district. So to be able to have someone hand that off in a proper manner, we'll be able to get someone starting this job right away, being the lead instructional lead that should be happening in this district.
And hopefully attract candidates who
That's
are
right.
qualified to carry our district forward.
And we all talk, right, as superintendents, and right, and be able to tell the story of what a great district this is certainly on its way to becoming.
We're having that strategic plan too.
Agreed. What a great gift.
Strategic
Yep.
plan, yeah, and that's a lot of stuff to work on for everybody.
Yes.
So, and Tracy mentioned the timeline too, that hypothetically then in January, we would be having someone, and then you mentioned that that transition period.
Yes.
Cool, all right, anybody else? Final words? So we are voting to start the interim search right now. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? Okay, that motion passes as well, thank you. We have a motion for the approval of the Boylston Education Collaborative to host a bingo night and sell alcohol if approved by the Town of Boylston Select Board for the purpose of fundraising.
So
Lori? Jess? Megan?
Yeah,
Tell
I'm
us
sorry,
about
guys,
this.
I didn't put anything in the drive. So this is exactly the same thing that we did last year, and I'll abstain from voting on this, because I'm the treasurer for the group, but we have a member of Boylston Education Collaborative. Her mother owns Greens, which is a bar in Worcester, and donates alcohol to our event. We hire a tip certified server, and that person, we sell alcohol. It's $10 a drink, or I think it's $20 for 3 drinks. We don't serve anyone more than 3 drinks. There's bracelets, you're only allowed to buy 1. They mark the bracelet after they serve a drink if you buy a 3-drink bracelet. We have a police detail at the event, and then we have a strict no entering the building with alcohol rule, because you cannot bring alcohol into a school. So the event is held completely outside. If it is rained out, alcohol still has to stay outside. And the beauty of getting the alcohol donated is if we don't use it, it just goes right back to the bar. There's no waste. So it's just a win-win. Last year, I think we raised like $1,000 just from the alcohol sale. We did it again for our Pumpkin Fest. It was a very cold day. We still made like $300. And the rest of the alcohol went right back to the bar. So just looking for approval. If you guys approve it tonight, then I go to the select board, and then they have to approve it.
Any questions?
I can't say Breeds has the best steak and cheese in the entire city of Worcester. The best steak and cheese.
I'll have to tell my friend Carrie and you.
Just say.
Prove it.
That's it.
And I'm only going there for the steak and cheese. It really is not for the hot dog going there. Just the steak and
Al,
cheese.
Al, maybe we should see if we can get the steak and cheese.
There you go.
Come to Bingo, yep.
All right.
Rich could be up on that, right?
Any last questions? Okay, all in favor? Against?
And I
Okay.
just abstained.
Yes. All right, that motion is approved, thank you. Can I have a motion so we can discuss the approval of the youth risk survey?
So moved.
Lisa,
Second.
Jess? Any discussion on this? Al, what is this?
So we are one of the 79 schools that are randomly selected by the Department of Education to do a youth risk survey. I've spent some time, I've done this in the past in other districts. I've done a lot of homework on this, in terms of getting information from our students. I know you have that in the drive as well too. My recommendation at this time is that we take a pass on this. I don't think that this is the survey that and we do have an option. I think Sally and I made sure we made that connection with the Department of Education, making sure we had that option. But I felt it was important to bring it in front of school committee. But at this time, I am recommending as a superintendent to pass on this survey being administered to our kids. And I'd like to leave it just at that if I could.
Anyone?
I mean, what bothered me, some of these questions are, I think, horribly inappropriate. But beyond that, beyond the concern of whether the students will take it seriously or have a lot of fun with it, is the fact that there's a way to find out, like, it's just different classrooms and you can kind of narrow it down, and that's privacy. That was a pretty concern to me.
Also, the time to go into, it's 100 questions. I mean, that's just excessive. It's like, I guess my personal opinion is if the Department of Education has that information, why not send it out in the mail to parents and let them do that on their own time if they decide, why should the schools be the vehicle to do that with everything else we already have on our plates to make sure the kids are, passing the MCAS and getting ready for college and the SAT or whatever, all the stuff we have. So it just seems excessive to me.
There's a great book I get monthly. It's called School CEOs, right? And the article this month was research on what families want from school.
Yeah.
From schools. This is not one of them.
Right.
Just know that. This is not one of them. Okay? So my recommendation at this time to school committee would be that we respectfully respond to the Department of Education and say, we're giving up one of our slots.
And there's alternative.
I'm hoping that what we're talking about, the strategic plan, that we'll be giving surveys out and getting information from families, but not to the level of this.
Okay. So I'm going to ask if all are in favor would be to pass this approval, which is against what Al has suggested. So all in favor?
Wait, hold on, I want to make sure I understand.
The motion is to
Point of
approve
parliamentary inquiry.
the motion is to approve the youth risk survey. So if you vote for that, you are approving it. Al has suggested or recommended not to. So all in favor? Any against?
Nay.
Nay.
I heard 4.
Present.
Present. Jess abstains? Was present?
No, present.
Present, okay. Okay, so that motion does not pass.
Thank you.
Could I have a motion to approve the Tohoto proposed courses that are in the draft? Can we hear about this? Can I have a motion?
So,
Lori, Megan, okay. Can we hear about this? What do we got?
Yep. Lisa, can I, sorry,
So there are proposals for 5 different classes. And 3 of them are AP courses. The first 2, AP Seminar and AP Research, those the courses would run in successive years and really would encompass a capstone project. Matt spoke about the exhibitions that were happening with literature This is actually like the exhibitions on steroids, you know, and really an opportunity for students. We're really seeking the approval so we can try to figure out how we're going to map this out for students. We're really trying to be forward-looking in terms of, we know we have some retirements coming in the next couple of years, and those are pretty significant shoes to fill. So we're trying to look at our, you know, building the curriculum moving forward. So those two courses, pre-calculus AP or AP pre-calc, that is a new course that is being presented by the College Board and would be a really wonderful offer. And we offer AP Calc AB and AP Calc BC. So this would be a natural addition. The fourth course is Art Through Literature. This, we were very fortunate to hire an art teacher who also has a license as an English teacher and fully certified in both. And this would be a wonderful opportunity to explore art, literature, art history. It could be served as an art elective or an English elective, a really, I think, exciting opportunity for our students. And then also our CS Computer Science Python Fundamentals, which would be added to really enhance our computer programming. We have computer science discoveries. In the middle school, we have computer science principles that can be taken as a course or an AP course. This provides yet another opportunity for our students to endeavor in coursework that is really relevant right now. Any questions? I'm happy to answer.
Anyone?
So Art Through Literature, is that an honors or, I don't know, not regular, but like college prep?
It would, I would imagine that it would be considered a college prep course.
Any other questions? Okay. All in favor of this motion?
Aye.
Anyone against? Okay, the motion passes. Lisa, if I could just ask you one thing. So we talked about this the other day about promoting the opportunities for kids so that they can be enticed to stay. So this would be something I hope that gets promoted outside of just this meeting for the, I know everybody's watching, but like as kids come into Tohoto, their families might like to know that these opportunities are there.
Yes, absolutely, and these will be incorporated into the program of studies, and I'll also additionally put information in the newsletter.
Yeah, maybe even like some sort of promotion announcement, like, hey, look at what we can do now type of thing.
AP capstone is unbelievable. Sorry, it's exactly what we should be doing. And going that pathway is what we should be doing as well.
So they have a capstone class here?
That's what they're, sorry, looking to move forward with that, right?
Right, absolutely, look at the seminar and research is like a 2-year capstone project.
Oh, that's great.
Cool. All right, thank you, Lisa.
Yep.
The next item is just the calendars. This is for a first read only. Any quick questions on that? Otherwise, we'll wait for Al's presentation next time. Okay. Can I have a motion to approve to update district contacts listed within the following policies: KCAB, sexual harassment policy for sexual harassment against students, ADF, wellness policy, nutrition, food allergies, physical activities, mission, and goals, JBA, policy against harassment, discrimination for students, and this is simply to update the contacts listed within.
We're moving away
Grab a
from,
motion.
sorry, that, I'm sorry.
So moved. Second.
Lori, all right, go ahead. Al.
So we're just moving away from individual names, previous superintendent's name on there, Janelle's name on there, instead putting positions instead of names. So we made one change already, but these are the other changes we went through, Nicole and I, going through them and finding that these are the changes need to be made.
Questions?
Yeah, the only thing about the wellness policy is it's very, I talked to Sally about this, it's super vague on, policy on bringing in outside foods.
Yeah, but Megan, this is only to update the names.
Just the names.
All right, fine.
We're not discussing the policy.
I know, so are we gonna get a chance to,
I'm gonna be addressing that at the next meeting.
so then we'll have to vote on it
I
again?
mean, at our wellness meeting, the information that we discussed.
Okay,
If there's a change, then I'll have to bring it back.
okay, gotcha.
We should have no policies that have individual people's names on those.
Oh, no, I
It should
totally
be all
agree.
in Positions. And please, we went through, Nicole and I, if there's another one you're seeing in there, we went through, and I should say Nicole, making sure, so please.
All right.
I do have a question. Oh, okay. So the ACAB, which is sexual harassment against students, lists the Title X coordinator
Title IX.
or Title IX.
Title IX.
Right, okay, I typed that.
That's
in.
okay.
But then, so for JBA, it's harassment and discrimination for students, but it also includes, things of a sexual nature. And I'm just wondering, should Title IX also be in there, like a reference to that position?
You're talking about the cross references at the bottom?
No, it's just about who to contact. Like it said Title IX coordinator in the ACAB one,
Okay.
but it didn't say it for JBA.
Who is it saying for JBA?
It just listed, personnel and
Okay.
people services.
Yeah, but that's who the
Because
Title
JVs
IX
was-
Yeah,
coordinator
that's,
is.
that's what we're doing. We're replacing the name Janelle with,
Right, I know, but in the JBA, it doesn't list the Title IX at all. It
So-
just says the pupil and personnel services.
That person in our district is the Title IX coordinator. What was the name?
yeah, there's some
Yeah.
confusion here.
You get what
But
I'm
isn't
saying?
isn't JBA, if I'm not mistaken, that's policy against harassment and discrimination for students? As opposed to,
As opposed to sexual harassment.
for the,
That's for, yeah.
so,
More like bullying.
But harassment does also include,
But that
It
would,
mentions
that
the
would fall,
sexual
that would
stuff.
fall under ACAB,
Yeah.
sexual harassment.
so Lisa, ask me the question one more time, I'm sorry.
it just seemed like maybe the Title IX coordinator should also be included in the JBA as somebody to contact if you have a problem.
But the Title IX coordinator is the director of pupil personnel services or the director of curriculum and grants. And that person, it doesn't specifically say the Title IX director, but it says those two positions. So I guess the only issue we run into is if you change who the Title IX coordinator is, but then you have to update the policy anyway.
Yeah. And by the way, Title IX coordinators, we just don't dub them Title IX coordinators, they go through training for that, right? So right now, it's both Sally and Janelle that are on Title IX coordinators.
But those people are listed in JBA.
Those are the,
And we're removing them and putting positions.
Well,
and those are-
the
those are the
positions are
positions
listed
that
in both policies.
That's right.
It just doesn't say Title IX.
In the second one, in the JBA.
Exactly, but it says the positions are listed in there.
Yes,
Yeah,
They are.
the same, yeah.
They're one and the same. But I think what you're saying to me is, should we put Title IX coordinator in
Legally,
JBA?
should we have
Yes.
it?
That's exactly.
yeah, she's just saying, wait, it says the coordinator for Title IX of Education Amendments. Wait, it's not on page, what is this page? What is this?
We could do that.
I think it's on page 4.
So can we make an amendment on that, or we
Oh.
just vote it as is and then add that in
No,
next
it
time?
does, JBA, it's in a different area. It's in the sentence form, right above there.
Are
Coordinator
you
for Title
looking at
IX of the
JBA?
Education Amendments of 1972, Section 5-4, Rehabilitation Act, 1973, Chapter 622 of the Act of 1971 for the Berlin Boylston Public Schools is. This is the marked up one.
It actually does say it in the policy.
Yeah, it says it in both, right?
Right below it,
It mentions the Title IX.
right below the.
Yeah, then it says policies may, yeah,
For
inquiries, yeah, it's
closure.
just different.
Yeah, it's not consistent, the way they're listed out.
So I think we could look at that, and that would have to be a little different change of making a change to this policy. Right now, we're just asking you to change,
Take out the names.
just take up names and put positions in instead.
Okay.
But duly noted, I wrote that down, so the next policy meeting, we'll definitely look at that in between now and then.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks for catching it.
Anything else?
I
That's
just
it.
had a,
Yeah, Jess.
not necessarily need to answer tonight, but I saw the sixth grade only needs one semester of gym. And as a nurse practitioner, that really
This is-
bothers me.
yeah.
No, I know, so I don't need any answer.
Megan's question couldn't go either, so this is only about names, not actual
I just
content of the policy.
Curious.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against?
So
All right,
we'll
so that
make those
falls-
changes
that
tomorrow, get
passes.
all those names off the position.
Okay, so now we're gonna enter into executive session, and I will ask for a motion to enter executive session 1 and 2, and will not return to open session. Executive session pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A, Purpose 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, BBEA, CBA, if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body and the chair so declares. Executive session 2 will be pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30, Section 21A, Purpose 1, to discuss the reputation, character, physical condition, or mental health rather than professional competence of an individual, or to discuss the discipline or dismissal of, or complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual. Have a motion.
So moved.
Lori,
Second.
Lisa, okay, Beth, Jess, Megan,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Lisa.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. We will now enter executive session. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thanks. Sorry, I just, well, I'm still in the meeting.